My wife cheated for years. The child I loved wasn't even mine. I have no one to talk to about this. I don't know if I need advice, support, or anything else. I'm going crazy trying to deal with this. Life has brought me to a dead end, and I am fighting not to lose myself. But at the same time, I doubt what is generally correct in terms of actions, words, and thoughts. Let me start by saying that I am writing this message from a hospital room. Yesterday, around 7:30 a.m., my wife and I were involved in an accident. I escaped with only cuts and bruises. My wife, Amy, has a shattered shoulder, a broken collarbone, 3 broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. Doctors expect her to make a full recovery, but for now, she is being kept in a medically induced coma. Writing this from my phone is hard work, but now I have time. I wouldn't write if everything in our marriage was perfect. This is obvious. But I could never even imagine that my wife was capable of infidelity. My heart is broken. I feel inadequate, as if I have lost a part of myself. And the saddest thing is that this part is only a meter away from me. For the last 3 months, I have felt that we are moving away from each other, but I could not find the reason. We are both 34 years old. Amy and I have known each other since childhood. We started dating in college and continued throughout college. She's the only woman I've ever had sex with. Until recently, she could have said the same thing. We got married a year after graduating from college, and the year after that, we had our first child, Jacob. 3 years later, our daughter, Haley, was born. I love my children more than life itself. If it weren't for them, I'm not sure I would be here now. Thank God, at the time of the accident, there were no children with us. They spent the night with my parents. We were planning to fly to Florida for a cruise, but the night before, my wife decided to go for a walk with her best friend. Even though I asked her to come home and not drive in the snow, she swore that she and her friend Sarah would just have a couple of drinks since they wouldn't see each other for a week. I went to bed and slept like a baby until 5 a.m. I woke up, looked out the window, and saw that my wife's car was gone, and even more snow had fallen. I thought that Amy and Sarah had had a little too much, and my wife stayed over with her for the night. I got dressed and got into my SUV. Before I left, I texted Amy to tell her not to drive. There was too much snow and I was going to pick her up. The message remained unread. I couldn't count how many times I asked myself, what would happen if she read this message? I'd still be living a lie, I would still have that bad feeling. But I wouldn't be in the absolute nightmare I'm in now. I arrived at Sarah's and stopped in front of her house. I checked the message and it still hadn't been read. I hoped that Amy would read it and be ready when I arrived, but I accepted that I would have to go in and wake her. The front door was unlocked, so I walked in and looked towards the living room. There was no one on the couch. Sarah's bedroom was on the first floor and I didn't want to wake her, so I walked up the stairs to the guest room, opened the door, and my life was over. I remember walking into the room and seeing 2 faces peeking out from under the blanket. I remember bending over and pulling the blanket over me. I remember seeing my wife lying with her head on the bare chest of some man. The next thing I know, Sarah, Amy, and some half-naked guy I've never seen are trying to pull me away from her lover. I would probably be in jail now if they hadn't done that, but I honestly don't remember anything, so rightly or wrongly, I don't feel much regret about it. When I came to my senses, that half-naked guy said that he would take his friend to the hospital. Amy was sobbing. Sarah and I were yelling at each other. I told her and my wife I was leaving and gave Amy 5 minutes to be in my car or not try to get home. She was there in 3 minutes. Driving through snow in this condition is not a good idea, even in a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Suddenly, another car entered our lane and we were carried over the guardrail. This is what caused Amy's injuries. The car overturned. Thank God the airbags deployed. We survived. The kids don't even know we had an accident and I didn't call anyone. I probably should have done this. But it's not just an accident. My life has been ruined, and I'm trying to assess the extent of the destruction before involving others in it. I feel numb, but at the same time, I am in terrible pain, and not because of the accident. It seems to me that I don't know the person who lies in this hospital bed next to me. I want to ask her 1,000 damn questions, but honestly, I don't want to know a single answer. Obviously, she doesn't love me anymore. No person who has a soul would cheat on the person they love. So I have to wonder, did she ever love me? And if she wanted to love again, Would I want it after what she did? I don't know exactly when she started cheating, but for me, the marriage ended the moment she did it. Vows were broken. She buried our marriage, and we are no longer husband and wife. I need a lawyer to annul our union. After all, she has already done it. Therefore, I am no longer bound by the obligations that I accepted. A huge part of me just wants to get out of this room. I want to call her parents, tell them what she did and what happened, and then say that now let them deal with it. We vowed to be together in joy and sorrow, and that's exactly what I meant. But we are no longer married. Part of me wants to leave her a note and tell her that, unfortunately, the heartbreak happened after she ruined our relationship. The only thing keeping me in this damn room is the children. I really want to see them right now, but I have scratches on my face and neck. If they see me, they will immediately understand that something has happened. As much as I feel that my wife has defiled herself in our family, my children need her. I thought I had a partner for life. And despite how terrible she seemed, children need a mother. There will be conversations that I won't be able to have and won't know where to start. There will be traumas that need kisses and not just words. The father will endure, but he will not be able to replace the mother. Please, someone help me. How can I sit here and look at someone who stabbed me in the back so brutally? Should I call her parents to come over? What will I tell them? I really don't want to be here, especially with her parents. If I don't tell them what she did, they'll still know I'm angry. What on earth am I going to tell my kids? Yes, I can say that we had an accident, but I don't know how to hide my emotions. My wife seems to do this with ease, but when I hate a person, it's immediately visible on my face. The children will understand that I'm angry with their mother. How the hell did I end up living this life? I already know that I need to contact a lawyer. I understand that. But how can I deal with this? Update 1. After my first post that day, I decided to stay another night in the hospital room, sitting next to Amy. With the lights off, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, listening to the medical equipment. I lay there wondering how the hell my life had gotten to this point. Part of me felt like I was showing undeserved mercy just by being in the same room with her, and part of it was that I still loved her. I didn't want to feel this love. It seemed to me that I was weak for having any positive feelings towards her. I realized again and again that it was impossible to return everything as it was. It was like a natural disaster that destroyed the entire calm life that we had built. I cried a hell of a lot. I realized that a huge part of my life was over, and this moment meant a lot to me. When the nurse came in to draw blood the next morning, I left the room. When Amy woke up and saw me walking towards the exit, she called me, but I pretended that I didn't hear her. I went to have breakfast. I haven't had much of an appetite since I found out about everything. I tried to pass the time by barely eating and checking my phone. There was a message from Sarah asking where Amy was, which I didn't read. At 7 a.m., I decided it was time to knock on her parents' door. Her father always got up early. I planned to talk to him first, and if he decides that his wife should hear it, he will wake her up. I saw smoke rising from the wood stove in his backyard workshop, so I knocked on the door before entering. He saw scratches on my neck and a bruise on my cheek. I explained that there had been an accident and Amy was more seriously injured, but we needed to talk. I think he thought it would be about the accident, so he woke up my mother-in-law so she could hear what I had to say. We sat down in the kitchen, and I explained that, at the turn, a car from the oncoming lane drove into ours. Thanks to the fact that we had a heavier car and four-wheel drive, I managed to stay on the road until we crashed into the guardrail. The passenger side door caught one of the vertical beams set in the concrete. Despite the airbags, Amy was hit hard. She suffered multiple injuries, but I said she was in stable condition, and doctors expected a full recovery. They both cried when they learned that their daughter was hurt, but would still be with them and they could continue to love her. As soon as they hinted that they were willing to help me in any way possible to take care of Amy, I left them and explained that the accident was not what I came to them about. They looked puzzled. Then I told her how I woke up that morning, sent a text, and headed out into the snow to make sure my wife was okay. I told them how I walked in and saw their daughter with some guy I didn't know, and how I unconsciously beat him over and over again. They were both shocked. I then told them what room she was in at the hospital, and explained that I had always wanted them to be a part of our children's lives. Therefore, I hope that they can maintain friendly relations with me. I told them that my father is currently looking after the children, but I am divorcing their daughter because she broke our vows and is no longer my wife. And I went home from them to my father to tell the children about the accident. I was also going to tell them that their mom and I were no longer together, but I wasn't going to say that their mother was a cheater. I told my ex-in-laws that while it hurts me that it ended this way, at least I can say that I wasn't the one who ruined our marriage and my life. They tried to tell me that there was no need to rush so much, that she had made a mistake, and they started throwing in the usual excuses. I simply smiled and said that it was a pleasure to have them as relatives all these years. And then he left. When I came to my father, I of course had accumulated a lot of things that needed to be shared. I walked into the kitchen where my father was drinking coffee. All he knew was that I was supposed to be on a cruise ship in the Caribbean. He stood up and asked what I was doing here. I just hugged him and started crying like a baby. This was a case where he really wanted to know what was going on, but felt he needed to let me cry first. He took me into the living room and sat me down on the sofa while he followed my mother. We both insisted that she drink a cup of coffee first, but she already realized that if I was here alone, so early, it meant something had happened. First I told how Amy cheated, how I caught her and left Sarah. I then explained that there had been an accident and that it was quite serious. I told them about Amy's injuries and that I had only informed her parents an hour ago so they could visit her. The parents were shocked. Mom finally asked what I was going to do now. They both cried when I told them that the only option left for me was to divorce Amy and be the best father I could be to my children. As our conversation was ending, I heard my daughter Haley scream, "Daddy!" and ran down the stairs towards me. This woke up my son, who also joined us a couple of minutes later. I hadn't seen them for so long that I just spent time hugging them and being happy to see them. It took them a while to notice my scratches. I told them about the accident and that their mom was in the hospital, but she would be fine. I said her parents would pick them up so they could visit their mom and left it at that. I spent the day playing, talking, cuddling, napping, and laughing with my children, and they were the ones who made me want to live again. Until that moment, to be honest, I was 50-50 in terms of whether I wanted to live at all. But children are truly worth living for, protecting, and loving. My wife's phone was destroyed in the accident, so no one heard from her for several days. That evening, I started receiving messages from my mother-in-law's phone and realized they were from Amy. I ignored them. They kept coming sporadically throughout the night, but I turned off the notifications. The next day, I spoke with 3 law firms about filing for divorce. I can't say that I want or even need a legal divorce, but it will allow me to divide property and resolve the issue of child custody. What she does and with whom she does no longer concerns me. I met with 2 lawyers, and I like the second one much better. I will meet the third, who is considered the best, to see if he can surprise me. If not, I will go with the lead lawyer of the second firm. In any case, I have eliminated the top 3 lawyers from the list of possible candidates. For her. And this is already a victory in my eyes. Guardianship is my main goal. I don't claim full custody and wouldn't even want it if I could get it. Children need their mother, but because of what she did, she can never be a part of my life again. Someone else will drop off and pick up the children for their errands. There is not a single reason in this world why I should ever speak to her again. I obviously never really knew her, so why should I continue to communicate with a stranger? I'm heading back to work next week after what should have been our cruise. At work, I didn't tell anyone that we weren't going anywhere, and he didn't mention anything about the accident at all. Of course, they will see that I am driving a rental car and will ask if I bought a new one. I'm not sure if I need to explain things, make jokes, or go off topic, but I definitely don't want my private affairs to become public knowledge. I already have enough humiliation for this to be discussed at work. Divorce is sometimes necessary. However, it always symbolizes failure. However, I'm no longer going to be an anchor for a ship that is already sunk. And for those who rightly advised me to get tested for STDs, I underwent a full examination, and the results were negative on all counts. God bless. Even that made me feel like some kind of pervert. Even though I hadn't done anything wrong, I think that by this time Amy had already been discharged from the hospital. Her parents didn't even try to bring her home, even though they wouldn't be able to contact me because of Amy's constant messages that I didn't read. Once I can file the divorce papers and serve them on her, I can complete this major mistake of my life. Her action devalued the time we spent together. If I had the opportunity to live it all over again, I would not make this choice again. I would prefer life with anyone else who would actually be faithful and devoted. Her greatest asset, her ability to be reliable, was thrown away by herself. I will long for the time when you could call someone your family. And now there is only emptiness left. But now I know it was all a lie and I meant nothing to her. People tend to admire beautiful lies and turn away from ugly truths. I'm not one of those people. Many wanted to know the dirty details. Who did my wife cheat on me with? Why? And how long did this last? Sorry, but I don't have this information, and frankly, I don't want to know it. Short of literally putting a gun to your head, there's no excuse for cheating when you create a marriage bond and promise to keep it, and then decide to have some other leftist person destroy it. It's low. I wish I had never met her and chosen someone else. Anyone. She had no right to give me life, and then take it all from me against my will. The person I was before her betrayal no longer exists. The woman she was never existed, and the life I had was just a facade in the ruins of which no one would want to live. Update 2. Probably the first thing to say is that I managed to find a very good lawyer. Her firm is top-rated for representing men in divorce proceedings. Instead of handing my case over to someone on the team, she took it over. Everyone at the firm was kind and supportive. I feel that it is important for them not only to get a fee. Lauren, my advocate, does everything she can to help me maintain my well-being and sanity. After she agreed to take the case, we filled out the standard forms. I included what assets I owned, all my bank accounts, and an estimate of how much Amy and I made. After I talked about the accident and what I saw in front of it, she asked if I had been tested for STDs. I replied that yes, they didn't find anything. She then asked if I had documented it. I replied that I was unable to think rationally. To do this, she called the private detective with whom her company works and made an appointment for the next day. I live in a state where infidelity is considered grounds for divorce. So even though I knew Amy was unfaithful, I needed proof to get the divorce in my favor. We agreed that one of the employees of her company would be an intermediary between me and Amy's father to communicate and organize meetings with the children. Her assistant told my father-in-law in advance that my ex could pick up the kids for the upcoming weekend and next week. Lauren then asked if I had arranged therapy for myself and the children. I explained that I had my first appointment with a therapist for that week, but since the children were not yet aware of everything, I postponed this issue with them for now. She said that as soon as I felt that the children needed professional help, I should tell her, and she would recommend several good specialists. She expressed, in my opinion, sincere condolences for what I had to go through, and what I still have to go through. I don't usually like lawyers, but I think this time I found one with a soul. She gave me a list of things to pack and get done before our next meeting. Many of these instructions were the same as advice I had seen online. So when she said I needed to go to the pharmacy and buy 2 DNA tests, I didn't think much of it. I knew this was standard procedure. When I returned home in the evening with the children, I took swabs from the mouth. For me and for them, sealed everything and mailed it to the laboratory. After dropping the kids off at school the next morning, Friday came 2 days later, and I took the kids to their grandfather's for the weekend. I went to work in the morning and was just returning from lunch when I received an email notification. I saw 2 letters from the lab and decided to wait until I got to the computer to look at them. At my desk, I opened the first letter and clicked on the link. The results showed that my son Jacob was indeed my son. I opened the second letter, clicked on the link, read what it said, read it again. Then more. I couldn't say anything. He just shook his head. I realized that I needed to get out of the office as quickly as possible before I lost my composure. I sat in the car and began to sob as the realization that my daughter Haley was not my daughter completely consumed me. I think that even losing my arm would hurt me less than losing my daughter. Honestly, it felt like my soul was taken from me. I didn't know who to call. I just sat there crying and praying for this nightmare to end. I downloaded the files from the email and sent them to my lawyer. 20 seconds later, Lauren called and asked where I was. I could only answer, "At work." She told me to stay put and someone from her team would come pick me up in a few minutes. I ended the call, opened the car door, and started vomiting uncontrollably, until I began to simply choke. The vomiting stopped, but my head was still dizzy. At that moment, one of the law firm's assistants arrived to pick me up. She drove me to the firm, and as soon as Lauren finished with the client, I was taken straight to her office. The first thing she said was that sometimes tests can be wrong. She said she understood how upset I was and that I had every right to be, but she strongly recommended that Haley be retested at a local lab to ensure there were no possible errors. I couldn't believe what was happening. Even after I caught Amy cheating, I thought DNA tests for children were just a formality. I would never have thought that my wife could be so unfaithful. But if you imagine that she could get pregnant from another man, then damn it, this is not the woman I married. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't resist Amy right now. After all, I had no evidence. And yet, if the results confirm what we already almost knew, I can't even imagine how we will be able to talk about it. One of the company's employees measured my blood pressure to make sure I was normal. It was elevated and I felt like I was on the verge of a panic attack. I thought, what will happen next? I had a hard time coming to terms with the idea that my little girl might never have been mine. At that moment, I was glad that the children stayed with their mother. I started to think, what if both tests are wrong and Haley is still my daughter and Jacob is not? I knew I couldn't wait 2 more days to find out the truth. So he arranged for a mediator to pick up Haley for a few hours the next day and take her back to Amy's parents. We conducted the test in a sterile environment, in the presence of medical professionals. There was no mistake. I am not Haley's father. The results came a day later when she was already with her mother. After that, I cried even more, and I was glad that Haley didn't see it. I sent the results to my lawyer, and she called to see how I was doing. She strongly recommended seeking family support and not trying to cope alone. I got into the car and drove to my father, crying the whole way. When I arrived and saw my mother, she realized that something was wrong, but could not tell me what it was. In the end, all I could manage was, "Haley is not my daughter." Mom asked, "What?" But she already knew that she had heard everything correctly. I was unable to repeat. After about 30 seconds of silence filled only by my uncontrollable sobs, she stood up, picked up the phone, and called my father. I told him to hurry home, but to be careful because I had bad news. I felt that my father would have wanted a hint of what could have been so terrible, but she only asked him to be careful and come as soon as possible. He returned 20 minutes later and we all cried together for a long time. I consoled my father. He consoled his mother. They consoled me. But to be honest, there was no consolation for any of us. They, of course, asked about Jacob, and I assured them that he was indeed my son. Both were relieved and then felt guilty that they were glad to lose only one grandchild. They asked what I was going to do. I said, I don't know. The only thing I was sure of at that moment was that Haley would never want for anything. I wasn't worried about possible child support. At that moment, I just knew she would be safe. As bad as I felt about this situation, I felt even more bad for Haley, who was absolutely not to blame for this. Do I want custody of her? Will I be able to get custody of Haley if I want? I started to wonder, did Amy know about this, or at least suspected? Suddenly, I needed answers to all these damn questions. I met with Lauren after work on Monday, and she told me that she had already contacted the private investigator hired to follow Amy. Because of the accident, she didn't leave the house to cheat anymore, so I wasn't surprised that no fresh evidence came to light. But Lauren asked me to bring Amy's old phone, which was in a drawer at home. The detective was able to access almost all of the apps as if it were her lost phone. He found dozens of nude photos sent and received from different men, countless messages and sexting, with confessions of guilt enough to convince any judge. I was asked if I wanted to see photos or read messages. I refused. But Lauren and I had to discuss how I was going to talk to Amy about Haley. Lauren offered to do it in her office if she could convince Amy to come. She called Amy's mother's phone right in front of me. I heard Amy's voice for the first time since I left the hospital. Lauren got straight to the point and said Amy needed to meet with me to explain herself. My ex stated that she had been waiting for this conversation and wanted to talk. She was asked if she had a lawyer. Amy replied that she did not have a lawyer but was willing to come the next day to talk. I barely managed to get through this day without bursting into tears. I arrived earlier and sat further away from the door. I couldn't get close to her. I looked through photos of our perfect family that never existed. When she walked in, she was having trouble walking and was still wearing 2 casts from the accident. I didn't have to worry about her trying to hug me. I thought she might be faking it to gain pity, but we actually had a serious accident. I just wanted her to sit down and explain. Once we were all seated, we were offered water and the meeting began. My lawyer started by asking if Amy would mind if we recorded the meeting. She didn't mind. As soon as we started recording, my wife tried to apologize. I abruptly interrupted her and asked directly, how many men did she cheat on me with and when did it start? There was enough confirmation from the private detective to know that the guy I caught was far from the first. Of course, she didn't know what we knew, and apparently, to lessen the severity of what happened before the accident, her plan was to admit only what she thought we knew. I asked her again, approximately how many men has she slept with since our son was born? The specific time period gave her a moment to think, but she continued to pretend she didn't understand. At that point, she still thought it was a game, and I was starting to get impatient. Lauren put her hand on my shoulder and gently pulled me away from the table. She looked at Amy and asked, have I been a good father? Amy immediately gave me an excellent testimonial, saying that she could not have asked for a better father to raise her children. I wanted to get up and turn the table when she said their children. Lauren then asked, will her baby's other father be a good dad too? While Amy was asking who the other father was, my lawyer gave her the results of Haley's paternity test. As much as I hated what my life had become since I found out about her cheating, I needed to see her reaction in person. She was clearly shocked that Haley was not my daughter. She tried to put pressure on me with the words, but you were her father, you raised her, and I had to stop it. I asked her, who is Haley's father? She looked down with a hint of shame. I thought she was trying to protect someone, but when she said that doesn't know for sure who Haley's father is, I felt that the bottom had not yet been reached. Amy saw me truly break down and cry for the first time. I couldn't take it anymore and lost my composure. Amy also cried, but asked to give her an attempt to explain herself. She reminded me of the postpartum depression she went through after Jacob was born. At that time, I tried to be as understanding as possible. I can confidently say that I spent every possible moment taking care of our son so that she could have time to herself. There were days when she was so depressed that she couldn't even get out of bed, and I took care of us all. But I enjoyed it all. I loved doing it. For the family that I had. Alas, I was so naive that I thought that if we overcome this, our marriage will become stronger. But no, Amy didn't blame Sarah for this at all. When she first persuaded her to go to a bachelorette party, I was more pleased than outraged. They had been best friends for many years, but had barely seen each other during their pregnancy. Amy said that at the second such party, she got very drunk and allowed some guy to touch her while she was pleasing him. She said she felt guilty about it for a while, several months. But then she began to feel resentful that she was not allowed to be young and free, to be with whomever she wanted. She said that she started seeing men every night she went out with Sarah until the night before our accident. She never even came home late. She claimed that she did not want to develop feelings for any of these men. She claimed that she always used protection and never slept with the same guy more than 3 times. She, according to her, just needed intimacy. I was stunned. The fact that your wife is a dirty liar is really confusing. It's like suddenly realizing that your whole life is a reality show that you didn't sign up to participate in. I wanted to scream at her, but I was too busy thinking about how many men she had cheated on me with all these years. Lauren asked her if she had any idea who Haley's father might be. Amy swore she always thought it was me. My lawyer suggested that something might have happened. For example, the contraceptive had broken. When my wife admitted that this had happened several times with different men, I lost my composure. I asked her who the hell she was because I didn't know the person who was telling me this. As if she was talking about some trifle, like pass the salt. I asked when she started hating me and why. What have I done to deserve this kind of treatment? How could she do this to her daughter? I screamed furiously. She was silent, accepting it, knowing that it was all true. After what she just said, and after I expressed my feelings about her, divorce was a foregone conclusion. Our marriage has become a scorched earth. The only thing left was to count the number of victims. I lost my wife and daughter. That's already 2 victims. The wife lost her husband. This is the 3rd. The daughter lost her father. And the brother lost his sister, who turned out to be half a stranger. And then there are grandparents, relatives. Amy actually destroyed 2 families. Her parents definitely wouldn't be able to accept what she did. I swear to all that is holy that I will show them all the evidence that the private investigator has collected. Amy admitted meeting men on a dating app with Sarah and using hen parties to cheat. She claimed that she never meant to hurt me. She swore she didn't know Haley wasn't my daughter. I even believe her, but DNA doesn't lie. I asked why she didn't just divorce me. She answered honestly that she did not want to lose the security that I provided her. She was crying. All this was said through tears, but I know that my expression was full of contempt. I was sick of the man who was sitting opposite me. I felt used, humiliated, dishonored. I felt broken. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons she came to the meeting without a lawyer was because I own all the property. She doesn't have much to lose except a small retirement account. My assets are an inheritance that I received when I was 14 years old from my maternal grandfather. The woman I call Mom is not my biological mother. My birth mother died when I was 2 years old from a rare form of cancer that progressed rapidly. My father married my current mother when I was 4. I always knew that she was not my birth mother and that I was not her birth son. Later I learned that she could not have children, and raising me helped her overcome this sad fact. When my biological mother's father died, her inheritance passed to me, but I couldn't touch it until I was 21. I studied well and went to university, but I don't have to work. My wife knows that in the divorce I will crush her into powder, and she can't see any half like her ears. She has a job, and although she cannot work yet due to injuries, she has a job. Part of me wants to punish her, but the other part wants to just get it over with. Amy was clearly on painkillers. Maybe that's why she was so frank, but her words literally pierced me, making everything even more painful. I asked if she felt any shame. She claimed yes. I asked, how the hell are we going to find out who Haley's father really is? My wife began her usual monologue about how I already know who is her father, and I was in no mood for any philosophical discussions about what it meant to be a father. Haley's real father deserves to know about her, and she needs to know about him, at least for medical reasons. The evidence the private investigator found did not extend to before Haley's birth. I asked Amy if she could find any of these men. Maybe she kept their names? She had the audacity to say that she deliberately deleted their numbers so that she would never see them again. Lord, why didn't I notice this about her before? Snobbish, arrogant logic. I told her that maybe she should have kept at least one number, to let him know that he was having a baby, or that she might have contracted some disease. I want my name removed from Haley's birth certificate. DNA proved that she was her mother's child, but not mine. As I said, I will support her financially of my own free will, even after she turns 18. She will not want for anything. As for my son in custody, I honestly don't know what to do. Before the paternity test, my plan was to seek an agreement where my ex-wife would have custody one weekend a month, on certain holidays, about 9/10. Now that Haley is not my daughter, I don't feel like it's right to seek custody of her, even if I could get it. And since Jacob still remains her brother, albeit half, taking a brother away from a child also seems like a so-so idea. I don't want any of them to suffer. I haven't seen Haley since I found out the test results, and I can't let her see how torn I am about it. God knows how much her therapy will cost, but I'll pay for it. It is unknown whether her real father can afford to pay for these services. By working with me alone, some psychotherapist may earn enough for a whole house by the sea. As I drove home after the meeting, a huge part of me just wanted to get it all over with. It seemed like the best solution, for everyone except me. Both could continue to live their lives pretending about parenthood. My ex would openly act like a boss by spending my grandfather's money, and children would not have to face the consequences of divorce and broken relationships. But by the time I got home, I said to myself, fuck it. Lauren is preparing divorce papers and legal papers to have me removed from Haley's birth certificate. This will drag out the legal process, but I don't want any legal basis that would force me to interact, pay, or deal with someone else's child. The physics team is also looking into ways to find Haley's real father. Many genealogy sites offer information about potential relatives. Even if the results do not point to a specific person, they may point to a brother, cousin, or other relative. Whoever he is, perhaps he is not ready to accept this child, whose existence he did not know. This may make him anxious, but I doubt his anxiety will be anywhere near the horror I felt at losing my daughter forever. Because she never existed. Everything is so confusing now. Nothing is stable. Chaos has become a daily burden. Update 3. On Sunday at 1500 hours, a mediator from a law firm wrote to me that she had picked up the children with their things and was on her way to the house. I doubt there has ever been a message in history that anyone feared as much as I did. What made it most tragic is that just a few weeks ago I would have been smiling, looking forward to it. And now the meeting that I would have been looking forward to with joy became something that made me shake. I had no plans to talk to my children about divorce, parenthood, or any other issues. No matter how much I prepared, I realized that I was in no condition to bring up these topics. My goal was to make it feel like the normal days of staying at the grandparents' house while Amy and I were on vacation. But I knew the reality would be very different, and I had little control over it. Jessica, an intern from a law firm, drove up to the house. I saw them drive up through the large window in the living room. I went outside and went down the steps. When the car stopped, I smiled as I walked over to the passenger side of Jessica's car. As soon as I saw Haley in her booster seat, she had a huge smile on her face. And I started crying, but I was still smiling. That damn smile couldn't be knocked out even with a heavy metal pipe. I just hoped that if I kept smiling, it would reassure the children and myself that everything was okay. I wish I had a plan B. As soon as I took her out of the car seat, Jacob was already there. I hugged both of them, Haley and Jacob. I told them I missed them. And that was all I could say. I just kept crying. Seeing them and knowing that Haley was not mine tore me up over and over again. Now I have to live with this. Every damn day brings a new disappointment. I'm learning more and more about the extent of Amy's infidelity. I remember our relationship and understand that they were all built on lies. I continue to move away from the epicenter of the chaos that began the moment I caught Amy cheating. But every day I am hit again by waves of betrayal as I discover how deeply I have been deceived. Jessica was an angel. She helped me bring children into the house. I took all their things and she closed the doors and trunk. As soon as I put my bags on the floor, I turned around and saw Haley looking at me. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me with her eyes as if she knew exactly what I needed. That hug. I squatted down. She came up and hugged me with her small arms, as tightly as she could. This girl broke me. I wanted to be strong, but no child should have to hear their parent cry like that. Everyone tells me that we need to do everything to cause as little damage to the children as possible. This is right, even logical, but what if literally every action causes them harm? What if there is no way to avoid this harm? The fact that a child sees the source of her strength and protection destroyed must obviously hurt her. How does this not traumatize her? If I left it, it would destroy it. But by remaining in her life, I also hurt her. A 6-year-old child should not console an adult, especially for something that wasn't her fault at all. At that moment, my soul burned with hatred for Amy. But the little girl Amy lied about showed me love in the best way she knew how. And she continued to hug me. An undeniable truth dawned on me at that moment. In this story, Haley is just as much a victim as I am. As an adult, I should be able to handle this better than a child. Haley doesn't even realize that she's already a victim, as if she and I were the only survivors of a plane crash. We survived, but it will still leave incurable scars on our souls. But as survivors, we must stick together. We need to be there for each other, because we're going through the same thing. I kept looking at it as if Amy had taken my daughter away from me. But it is also fair to say that Amy took Haley's father away from her. The villain in this story is Amy. I'm no longer going to feel guilty about what I feel. I don't know of any parenting manual to rely on. You all know very well how to react to cheating and give the best advice on how to survive a divorce. But how do you react when you find out that the daughter you raised was never really yours? No one can tell me what I should feel or how to react to it. The only analogy I can give is to children who were switched at birth. But couples like this go through it together. They were both deceived. Both learned that the child they thought was theirs is actually the product of another union. If you haven't experienced this or what I'm going through now, you won't understand how it feels. After about half an hour, I managed to compose myself a little. Jessica left after receiving a hug from all three of us. I handed her a small envelope with $500 inside and told her what kind of gas it was. She drives an electric car and realized that the money is not for gasoline. I carried Haley in my arms while Jacob showed me the things he made with his grandfather. Haley held onto my neck the entire time to let me know that she too helped paint the wood. I started my standard game of I don't believe you, and Jacob joined in. All of this resulted in a tickling experience, first for Haley and then for me. I can't tell you how beautiful and at the same time hurt was to hear Haley's laughter and squeals, to see how happy Jacob was and laughing. It was a joy for my broken soul because I knew that in the future there would be very few moments like this that we can enjoy so much. They united against me when they started to win the fight. I loved watching them work together, whether I was the father or not. But by the time she's old enough to date, I'll teach her how to say no firmly. I turned on the music. Since infancy, Haley has adored music. I danced with her from the first week of her life until last month. I'm sure it looked funny from the outside, but I don't care. I'm enjoying it, and she loves to be as stupid as me. I ordered food through Uber Eats for dinner. We're not Asian, but we definitely eat like we are. Jacob easily eats a 10-year-old's portion of noodles, and Haley, for some reason, loves crab rangoon. I didn't eat much. My appetite made sure I lost the extra weight. I just enjoyed having dinner with them again. They had school today, so I bathed them, got them into their pajamas, and got them ready for bed. Jacob likes to read a book before bed. I hugged him, told him that I loved him, and that I would see him in the morning. I put Haley to bed and read her a book, showing her the details in the pictures. She was almost dozing off when I felt myself starting to cry. I kissed her on the top of her head and said, "I love you." For the first time since I found out the truth. You can consider me the last bastard on the planet. I don't care. But having said that, it was like allowing myself to admit it. The last few days have been a struggle for me to understand what is real and what is not. My love for Haley is real. I love her. But I feel different. Whether this is right or wrong, I don't know. But I love her. If I didn't want to take anything away from her, then now, I want to keep giving. It's a huge difference. But be that as it may, I was waiting for Haley to tell me that she loves me too. I knew she loved me, even if she didn't say it. But instead she said, "Mom loves you." I immediately understood what she meant. I tried not to lose my temper and be gentle when I asked, "Haley, why did you tell me this?" She replied that her mother told her so. I asked gently, "Mom just said that? Or did I ask you to tell me this?" It turned out that Amy was forced to explain to the children why I had not come and would not come, and why she would not go home with them. She told the children that her parents' house was her new home, and I was even glad about it, and I continued asking, and then Jacob walked in. He said that Mom told them she wasn't coming home, because I don't love her anymore. What the hell was I supposed to say to that? Yes, it's all because of me. Did I just stop loving your mother? Blame it all on me? This won't happen. I called our nanny and asked if she could come and babysit the kids for a few hours, because they were already asleep, which meant she could study while she got paid. She agreed, and I got into the car and immediately headed to my father-in-law's house. I didn't call ahead. When he arrived, he knocked on the door and asked to see Amy. Her mother took me to her childhood room, where she was recovering from her injuries. I turned to her mother, put my hand on the doorknob, and said I needed to talk to Amy alone. She sensed that I was angry, so she hurried out of the blast area. As soon as the door closed, I immediately asked, "Who the hell do you think you are if you're trying to blame our divorce on the fact that I allegedly stopped loving you?" She said that, "This is true." I replied that maybe that's true, but the reason I can't love her again is because she is deceitful, vile, immoral, depraved, and two-faced. Nice attempt at shifting the blame for everything that happened. She said that she already tried to apologize, but I didn't want to listen to her. I exploded. What the hell good does an apology do? This will not reverse the damage caused or prevent it. And despite all this, I don't believe that she truly regrets what she did. I asked her how she could manipulate two innocent children to make me look bad if she feels any guilt. I asked, at what point did I become a bad person who destroyed our marriage? Without the slightest pause, she answered, "It happened when you didn't give me a second chance." I stopped her and asked, "How many painkillers do you take? And do you drink alcohol with them?" This was the only logical explanation that the thought could arise in her head that a lying and depraved woman deserves a second chance. Mercy and respect. She lost all this a long time ago because of her actions. Again, I have no idea who my wife is now. It's like she's been replaced by the ghost of Caligula or Charlie Sheen. My beautiful and virtuous wife has been replaced by a soulless, used liar. And it is a miracle in itself that my body did not begin to rot because of her actions. I asked, "Don't you regret that you ruined your whole life for the sake of cheap sex?" She replied that it was not only in intimacy. I reminded her that she had stated that she did not want emotional connections. She said that a lot, especially in the beginning, had to do with seeking approval. She liked that they were running after her. She got angry when I asked how she could consider herself chaste, but that's over. Her actions will determine her perception for the rest of her life. Amy and I were talking for several hours. She admitted that during the depression after Jacob was born, I was the most supportive husband she could have ever asked for. So I asked, "Then why did you betray me so cruelly?" She said that despite such a happy event in our lives, part of her was so overwhelmed with anxiety that she wanted to die. She felt love for me and Jacob, but for some strange reason she felt depression and inner emptiness. She didn't go to work for another 6 months because of her problems. I found the best therapists and doctors for her. She admitted it. And she said that this also began to make her feel guilty because she felt that she was letting me down. After all, I carried everything on my shoulders. She said she was feeling down, although I knew, which does not carry any weight. She began to doubt whether she should have become a mother at all, despite the fact that always wanted this. She distanced herself from her friends, both in real life and online. She told me every day that she loved me, and she apologized, and I told her that she has nothing to apologize for. I just wanted her to get better. Maybe she was apologizing for what I was going to do. When Rebecca came to our house for the first time unannounced, I was glad to see her. I knew that Becky was persistent enough to keep Amy from shutting her out, but kind enough to get her to open up. It took months for anything resembling a full-fledged coming out to happen. Even just getting Amy to go to Starbucks back then was a huge victory. A lot of men probably think I'm the last loser on earth if I let my wife go to bars and clubs with a lonely friend. And they would be absolutely right. I should have put an end to this much earlier, but at that moment, after all the sadness and isolation, getting her out somewhere seemed correct. It lifted her spirits. Even after the first time, she tried to explain that in 2 years she suddenly became a wife and mother. She said the fact that men were interested in her, even if only for sex, boosted her self-esteem. She claimed that the first incident wouldn't have happened if only she weren't so drunk. But according to her, it was done voluntarily. When she first cheated, she realized that if I found out, then more would never touch her. She knew that she would have lost everything because she entered into marriage empty-handed. I asked her if she ever thought that I would find out about cheating, and how would I react? She said she knew it would destroy me, and claimed that she was terribly ashamed. I asked the obvious question, then why did you keep cheating? She said that as soon as sobered up after the first betrayal, felt guilt, shame, and regret. I remember that she was very sad for a week after she first came out. Then Rebecca came and they talked alone for several hours. From that moment, for several months, I felt that Amy was back. She admitted that she told Becca that day that she felt unworthy of me because of what I did. She knew that if I found out, our marriage would end and I would fight for custody of Jacob. She said she decided to take this to the grave and be a better wife for me to make amends. Now I understand that it was a red flag. Yes, call me a fool all you want. But we had a child to take care of. And at that point, I was doing 95% of the caregiving duties. When I suddenly got my old wife back, I would have gone crazy at that moment if I thought that was a bad sign. At that moment, it was all a damn miracle. I returned to work full-time 2 weeks later when Amy became a stay-at-home mom. Looking back when Jacob was about a year old, these were some of the happiest days of our lives, at least for me. And the realization that it all happened in an attempt to make amends for pleasuring a stranger in his car forever changed my memories of that time. I asked, "Why did you cheat again? Was I not good enough for you?" It always seemed like we had a great sex life. Except for her period of depression. She always seemed happy when we were doing this. She replied that the longer I hid this secret, the worse I felt. But she could no longer confess her feelings to me. She knew that I would want to understand why she was sad so that I could support her. But she couldn't tell the truth. She said that the internal torment of keeping a secret and living in a false facade of happiness corroded her from the inside. She reminded me of the time I went to meet my birth mother's family in another state. I took Jacob with me to introduce him to the family for the first time. Amy canceled her trip at the last minute, citing illness. I couldn't stop her from cheating. It was already done. But maybe I could keep her from the road of lies on which she had been driving for the past 6 years. It turns out that what I valued was never mine. I didn't blame myself. She should have admitted to cheating and walked away, allowing me to move on. But somehow it turned out that her many mistakes, complicated lots of lies, and her carelessness about the consequences, now my burden. This is what you do with the enemy, and not with the one he once loved. She said she was depressed the weekend I was away. She knew she wasn't worthy of me, even if I didn't realize it. She punished herself even if she didn't know she deserved it. At least that's how she explained it. She knew that if I found out, I would consider her a whore and be disgusted with her. And I never stopped showing her love. I told her how much I love her. At some point, she realized that if I found out the truth, I would stop loving her. My attention to her no longer mattered. Yea, it did not have the same value because she realized that she was unworthy of him. But I didn't understand this because I didn't know about her dirty infidelities. She said she called Rebecca to cry on her shoulder. She convinced her to go have a drink. According to her, for the first part of the evening, she cried and asked what she should do. The bartender offered her a few shots to cheer her up. She didn't say it directly, but it was clear. Rebecca encouraged her to flirt. She started kissing the guy in the alley behind the bar, but stopped herself. She went back inside feeling even worse because I realized changed again. Then, more alcohol. Rebecca asked that guy to help Amy get home. Rebecca left them alone, and the clothes began to fly off. I asked her, did you even think about Jacob at that moment? Did you think about me when you betrayed both of us? She got angry and said that never betrayed my son. I let her know that she had not only betrayed me and Jacob, but also Haley, our parents, everyone who witnessed our vows, and even God. She betrayed the sanctity of our family and marriage. But then I just shook my head and said, despite everything you've done up to this point, your only right decision would be to just let me go. I said I would take care of Jacob and she could fuck with anyone after the divorce. At least with all the men in the state. I told her that I would love to write her name on the walls of public restrooms. But she didn't let go. She continued to lie. She continued to cheat. And all this makes me disgusted, even just hearing about it. After the first betrayals, she developed a real strategy. She didn't want men to get attached to her because never meant to leave. She wasn't looking for an emotional connection. She called it fishing. Get a guy, start flirting, give him bait, then pull away, make him pursue her, but on her schedule. She said she always knew I found her beautiful, but getting a second opinion didn't seem like a bad thing to her at the time. I just looked at her and shook my head. Anyway, bartender, not Haley's father. We are sure of this. He was too early to be a donor. And she claims they only slept together once. I asked, do you remember the names of specific men with whom you spoke and forced them to pursue you? Answer, maybe a couple of names, but I don't know where to find them. I paused this conversation. Yes, I wanted more answers, but all these details will not come out overnight. And I didn't come there for that. She sat in a chair to support her leg in a cast on cushions. I moved a few centimeters closer to her face and said, you are a pathetic semblance of a human being. I sincerely believe that you have no soul. Your actions have caused unimaginable pain, and will continue to do so for a long time. But I look you straight in the eyes and say, you won't hurt my children anymore. I told her directly, this I was deceived for 6 years. If anyone deserves an ounce of leniency to focus on their needs, then it's me. And then he added, every word is true. Any petty tricks and manipulations will only increase my disgust for you. We never won't be together. To me, I hate even just touching you. For you, the word loyalty does not exist at all. But despite the fact, am I biologically Haley's father or not? I will remain faithful to my daughter. I will protect her as much as possible. And if I have to protect her from her mother's lies, manipulation, and deceit, that so be it. I told her that Lauren has friends who would love to receive a new BMW for recognizing her unfit mother. Yes, it was a threat. And I meant every damn word. I said, if you have something to say it to my face. Never again will Jacob or Haley give me messages from their mother. Haley should know next to nothing about our divorce. And even more so about my paternity. At least, bye. But when the time comes, I'll tell her the truth. Exactly, I'll explain how her mother made both of us victims. I won't allow the person who destroyed our family downplay your guilt or blame everything on me. This terrible truth shouldn't be revealed to Haley now, at least until I decide for myself that the time has come. I also reminded Amy that she doesn't have a lawyer and said that the kids will stay with me for at least the next 2 weeks. She needs time to reflect not only on your betrayal, but also about how harsh manipulation can hurt Haley. I'll let her know when she will earn the right to be a mother again. She couldn't protest much. Moreover, she was in 2 casts. Let him live a little alone. My God, how many mistakes I have made in my life. While I was driving home, I kept thinking how I wish I knew how it would all end. This is the biggest struggle of my life, and I hope nothing worse will happen. But so much has already been destroyed. This fictitious marriage in which I lived must be demolished to the ground, ground into dust and sprinkle salt on the ground on which it stood. But there is no point in hurting a little girl who, at this moment, is not even aware of the battle being waged between her mother and her father. These kids shouldn't see us together. When Amy and I are in the same room, the entire atmosphere is filled with dangerous, poisonous gas. I will not allow my children to be put at risk like this. I won't quarrel with her in front of them, but I swear I will put her in her place and stop any of her lies or manipulation if necessary. Sorry it took so long. It just seems to me that every decision I make entails 1,000 consequences. Those who say, be a man or DNA doesn't matter, need to understand that hurting Haley is the last thing I want. And I am determined not only to support her, but also to fight for her. I don't know how this will all end, but both I and this little girl were deceived by the same person. A person whom I will not allow to traumatize a girl the way he traumatized me. This won't happen. And no one will come near my daughter until I allow this. This will not be Amy's decision. If it comes to that, I will check his background and meet him in person, and only then will I make a decision. I was able to shield the children from whatever storm was coming, and will try to protect them from as much debris as possible. But our souls will bleed more than once before this is all over. This massacre could have been avoided, but once the bomb explodes, it is no longer possible to evade its blow. Sorry for letting off steam. Initially, I was only going to write a short update, but sometimes it's too hard. Brevity is not my sister. I go to psychotherapy twice a week. I'm not sure it helps, but this is just the beginning. I need to go to bed. Therefore, sorry for the confusion. I'll leave everything as it is. Don't expect an update anytime soon. These posts have helped me vent a little bit about what I'm feeling, so thank you. I just need to focus on my recovery and making this life transition as painless as possible for the kids. Update 4. Not sure where to start. I'm afraid of missing something. It's very difficult to talk about one part of my situation without bringing up other aspects of my life. If the text seems unrelated to you, forgive me, but it will be long, because the life I lived is long gone. And now it seems to me that it was just a dream, and now I'm awake. The best analogy I could give is that Amy forced Jacob, Haley, and me to be on a cheap reality show against our will and without our knowledge. Shows were canceled, masks were torn off, and we were left with the cold reality of our collective lives. Not a day goes by that I don't think about how happy I was in my old life. But now I know that it was all a complete lie. I wouldn't want to go back there. The most important news I have to share is that legally I am no longer Haley's father. I was never her biological father. My name has been officially removed from her birth certificate. Since Amy and I are still married, I'm now Haley's stepfather, as weird as that may sound. When the divorce is officially finalized, I will become a nobody to her, just as she is to me. What should have taken about 2 months took 4 due to a pending divorce. My name had to be removed from her birth certificate in order to move in the right direction with the divorce. Legally, I had every right to do this. However, the decision on whether to remove my name was left to the judge to decide what was best for the child. Your DNA obliges you to pay child support until you're 18, but our court system considers that a secondary consideration when it comes to removing names from legal documents. I was willing and able to show the judge that I would voluntarily continue to pay for Haley's health insurance and other needs. Many men in my situation could not do this, nor should they. None of these decisions should be left to the judge. The injustice of the system did not affect me, but this does not mean that it is fair. From the moment I found out that Haley was not my daughter, I thought over and over again about the best way to handle this situation. Yes, the realization that she was not mine destroyed me emotionally. So much so that I'm not even sure I can describe it in words. But if I handled Haley's issue based on emotion, it would be a recipe for disaster. Emotions are not based on reason and logic. Letting my love for Haley control me would be as stupid as letting my hatred for Amy do it. Legally, I had every right to cut all ties with Amy and Haley, since neither of them were ever truly close to me. Morally, I couldn't allow Haley to suffer economically because of her mother's chaotic life. Ethically, I could not allow her to feel in the slightest degree that her mother was to blame for her birth. Ultimately, after much thought, I came to the realization that both she and I were victims of Amy. My wife took away my freedom of choice in every aspect of our relationship when she cheated on me. I was not told that she no longer loved me, or perhaps never did. I was deprived of the right to know that she was unfaithful. I was deprived of the opportunity to know that I was no longer the only one for her. I didn't know that she had conceived a child with another man and forced me to raise him as my own for 6 years. Haley didn't have the opportunity to choose me as a father. She couldn't tell her mother, which caused us both great harm. I wanted to give both of us the opportunity to be heard. The day after my name was officially removed from Haley's birth certificate, I applied to legally adopt her. This had been my plan all along, as soon as I could make sure that her face would not be a reminder of her mother's betrayal. All I needed to know was how I would feel seeing her after finding out that she was not my biological daughter. If meeting her had felt like a slap in the face from her mother, I wouldn't have been able to adopt her. Some people think I'm a creature. Fragile masculinity. I think one toxic feminist put it when I wasn't sure how I'd react to Haley. If I had completely left Amy and Haley, which I legally had every right to do, it would not have been a wrong decision. And I won't pretend that Jacob's presence in my life didn't influence my decision. After all, Haley is his sister and Amy is his mother. He is a good big brother, and his sister loves him. This played an important role in my choice. But Haley is my daughter. No, not in the same way that Jacob is my son, because he is of my blood. But I am her father, and I want her to remain in my life. I just felt like we needed to officially get things in order and give us opportunities that we didn't have before. At first glance, these may seem like pointless legal steps to get back to where I already was. My marriage was a lie. The relationship with Amy was probably a sham from the very beginning. What I deserve is the opportunity to start over. Choose another woman with the hope that she will be faithful and devoted. But I can never get it. I'll never know what could have been, even if any choice would be better than marrying an unfaithful woman. The children will not learn how vicious and treacherous their mother's actions were for many years. But one day I want them, especially Haley, to know about my struggle, about how I tried to hold on and protect them. I want her to understand that despite all the hatred I feel for her mother, I gave myself the opportunity to choose whether to be her father or not. And I chose to be. When the judge asked this innocent little girl if she wants me to be her daddy again, I want her to say yes without hesitation. Only years later does she realize that she actually chose me as her father. She also had a choice. We were thrown in together and had no say in the matter. But I'm doing everything I can legally to adopt her as if she were my flesh and blood, even if she's not. One day, when she becomes an adult and realizes that she had a chance to free herself from me, and she didn't take it, I want her to smile. I want her to know that I didn't have to be her father. I chose to be her father. In a sense, this makes our connection even stronger than blood. There are a few people I am related to by blood that I would rather not be related to. But I can't choose. And Haley and I chose each other when we could have cut all ties. She knows that I love her, and I will always love you. Functioning every day just to get through this hell that my life has become is incredibly difficult. It's exhausting. But I've also been thinking about how I want kids to feel about this years later when they become adults. When they find out about their mother's actions, about how I found her, and what I discovered. I want them to be disgusted. When Haley realizes that I didn't have to pay a penny to raise her, but I did anyway, I want her to feel grateful. When she realizes that her mother put both of us in this situation, but we got through it together, I want her to be glad that we made it through. When they realize that their stability could have been completely destroyed because of their mother, but I held it together for the three of us, I want them to understand at least some of the sacrifice I made. I will not allow distorted stories to be told in 10 or 20 years. I know that their mother is a selfish, pathetic, and worthless person. One day they too will know this truth, and I hope that they themselves decide to turn on her for what she did. But it will be their decision. When the truth is revealed, all I can do is get Amy out of my life in every possible way and continue to live. I don't care what happens to her. Children are the only thing that matters now. A lot of people asked how I dealt with Amy telling the kids that we would never get back together because I didn't love her anymore. The very next day after school, I took them both for ice cream at the local park. Jacob seemed to accept that I didn't like their mom, but he didn't like it. It was hard for Haley to hear that I didn't love her mom, and my answer that her mom didn't really love me didn't help. They both cried a lot and had a lot of confusion in their heads. I tried to tell them that without any doubt, their mother truly loves them, and I love them more than anything in this world. But they had to hear the truth and accept the reality that none of us asked for. That's really all that matters. Haley asked why I didn't love my mom anymore. I wanted to be as honest with her as I could, but I didn't know how to tell her that her mother was crazy. All I could come up with was to say that her mom lied to me and hurt me. She hugged me to comfort me, and it almost broke my heart, considering she needed comfort herself. Jacob asked what would happen with the divorce. I told them that they would live with me and I would take care of them at home for a week. I explained that the court would decide what weekends they could spend at their grandparents' house with their mom. I promised them that from now on, their mom and I would keep all our fights to ourselves. I explained that she and I had a long talk last night after they got home. Haley said she wanted her mother to stay with us. It pained me to tell her that this would never happen again, under any circumstances. But she needed to hear it. She said her mom told her she wanted to come back and stay with us. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her that I had no doubt that their mother would really like to stay with us. I told them it's impossible to explain now, but their mother betrayed the three of us. I said they weren't old enough to understand it at the moment, but I promised that one day I would explain to them why I think their mother no longer deserves to live with us. Strangely, Haley accepted it more easily than Jacob. He started asking at what age he could find out what his mother did. He didn't like it when I said it had nothing to do with age, but with maturity level. He said it was an excuse. I didn't argue with him. I said I wanted them to love their mom and treat her with respect, because as far as they knew, she had done nothing wrong to them. One day, they will know everything. I'll leave them letters in my will if I have to, in case Amy drags some ex-con into the house who's ready to kill me. If it doesn't come to that, I will tell them myself when they are old enough, knowing that this will negatively affect their opinion of her. I have a feeling that soon they will see a version of their mother who will do most of the work for me. One day they will find out what she did to us all, but we stayed together and managed to build a decent life for her three biggest victims. I am incapable of pretending to my children and acting like their mother means something to me. She is disgusting in every way. If she had died, I would not have shed a single tear for her vile soul as she went straight to hell. She deserves it. I hate her for what she did to me and the children. I hate her for allowing herself to become what she became. I hate her for the stress and tears she brought to our families. She doesn't deserve forgiveness, chances, and even less compassion. I don't consider her injuries from the accident to be karma. It's just pain and suffering that she deserves. Real karma would have found a way to avoid destroying my car and would have caused much more serious damage than what Amy suffered. I heard from children that the next day their mother would have the pins removed from her shoulder. I didn't tell them that I hoped they would do it with a powerful electromagnet, but it was hard for me not to say so. A few weeks after our conversation, the children returned home from their grandparents with a letter. It was sealed in an envelope with my name on the front. I couldn't throw it away in front of the kids, so I just put it on the table with all the other mail. After I put the kids to bed, I decided to read it. Amy started by apologizing for hurting me. She claimed that she never intended for it to come to this, that she forgot who she was and who she wanted to be, and apologized for hurting the children. Despite all my contempt for her, I had to give her credit. If she had stopped there, I might even have shown her some respect. But then she wrote that she still loves me with all her heart, always has and will always love me. I needed to laugh, and this letter gave me that chance because I knew she really believed the nonsense she wrote. That's what made her words so funny. According to her, this is why she did not want to develop feelings for other men. Her heart belonged to me. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. She couldn't give her body to others if she loved me. She couldn't do something so painful if she loved me. She wrote that she gave her body to other men because she wanted to experience what it was like to be young and free from responsibilities and obligations, something she had never experienced. But since she had no emotional connection with these men, her heart, according to her, always belonged only to me. In other words, her infidelities were strictly physical, which she thought was supposed to sound like something positive. Only the sickest of doctors could make such a conclusion. By disappearing from Amy's life, I protect myself from her madness. This was necessary for my own peace of mind. However, I also fenced myself off from fully understanding the depth of her mental and physical trauma. Since the day everything was revealed, I have thought 1,000 times that I never really knew her. But what she chose to write made me realize that she never knew me. She didn't even try to make me angry. I understood this from the way the letter was written. Her words essentially justified her actions as the lesser of two evils. For her, her lack of emotion towards other men supposedly kept her heart for me. This was her explanation. I understand that realizing that your partner is in a purely emotional relationship with someone else can be soul-destroying. But no one has ever contracted a sexually transmitted disease through text messages or conceived a child through calls, letters, or correspondence, and then had someone else raise that child. I can say with complete certainty that I would have preferred her to have thousands of emotional connections if they had never turned physical. The fact that she didn't understand this just screams, "I never knew you." She chose the worst of two evils in my eyes, and she never knew me enough to understand it. I've heard a lot of other people's stories about cheating, but I've never heard someone say, "There was never an emotional connection between us." But this is exactly what she claims. And at the same time, she does not realize that she is essentially admitting that for the last 6 years of her life, she was nothing more than a primitive, immoral creature, guided only by instincts. Only unreasonable creatures who are unable to control their intimate impulses and behavior behave this way. She understood that her actions were wrong, but to some extent she justified herself for what she did, so as not to simply go crazy. Before this letter, I had little understanding of how she perceived her actions, which she performed with enthusiasm and without remorse. The depth of debauchery that she not only accepted, but also welcomed, completely destroyed any attraction I had for her. Because of her, I will forever be left with these terrible images in my head, like the one when I caught her with that random guy. But that scene was nothing compared to her admission that she had cheated with enough men to man an aircraft carrier. When the private investigator showed me the recovered messages, photos, and videos from her old phone, something inside me snapped. I felt like I was married to a strawberry site or yellow hub. Anyone who finds out that their partner is having a one-night stand, I truly feel for you. People who find out their partner cheated with the same person, my heart breaks for you. But I can't find the words to describe what it's like to find out that the love of your life indulged in the lowest and most vile things, like some cheap ancient Roman whore, and got pleasure from it. Now I can't imagine Amy without seeing before my eyes the picture of her face covered in oatmeal jelly. She disgusts me so much that I will always perceive her in this guise. No amount of emotional ties to another person would make me think of her that way. She stopped being worthy the moment she turned her life into a 6-year time bomb. Haley's adoption petition was only the second or third most important thing for Amy that day. When I filed the papers at noon, the sheriff came to her parents' house to serve the divorce papers. 10 minutes later, another sheriff served her the papers for the civil lawsuit I filed against her. Calls and messages from her parents' phones went unanswered and were not read. Calls to my law firm resulted in her being strongly advised to hire her own attorney to begin the case. I was told that she yelled at several employees that day. Lauren eventually told her that the divorce would move forward whether she liked it or not, and any further harassment of her or her employees would be dealt with strictly. I'd even like Amy to keep pushing. I would never back down, but for what she did, she deserved real criminal punishment. A week later, the lawyer representing her called Lauren, and they had their first conversation. He asked if we were serious about pursuing a civil suit to recover the costs of raising a child that was not mine. Lauren assured him that we were committed to getting every penny we spent back on the paternity scam. Lauren didn't mention that it wasn't about the money. Even if I win, the likelihood that I will see even a portion of the funds awarded is extremely low. But if I win, the money will be deducted from each of her salaries until full settlement. This will be a dear reminder and punishment for what she did. And even if I lose, she will still have to pay a lawyer to represent her, and this is even more expenses that she cannot afford. He said he understood that the vast majority of the assets, including the family home, belonged to me long before our marriage. But he added that we cannot seriously expect to receive custody of both children, receive child support from her, and no child support for herself after a serious accident. Lauren told his lawyer that his client had been cheating in her marriage long before the accident and had chosen the wrong time to get caught. She informed him that our goal was to make this as painful as possible for Amy. The only valuable property that was in her name and remained in her possession was her car. And she could have left him. She was allowed to keep her pension savings because my portfolio was significantly larger than hers. The irony is that she wouldn't even have this retirement account if I hadn't insisted that she contribute the maximum amount possible from each paycheck. She never had to pay for utilities. Buying her own car and paying for insurance were her only expenses. She could spend the rest of the money on herself. Now she will have to live only on her own. I know she's already starting to feel the financial hardship, and that will only get worse if I win the civil suit. Starbucks sales will definitely fall, but it is necessary. I think she never expected me to go this far. As for cars, I drove her car for several months after my car was totaled in an accident. Knowing that this was the only valuable possession she had added to the pleasure, even if it was petty on my part. I bought myself a new beautiful SUV and asked a friend to follow me in it while I drove Amy's car to her parents. I left the key in the mailbox, not knowing when she would be able to drive again. Judging by her past, I was sure that she would start looking for new lovers as soon as she could. I hope that living with her parents will make her feel young and free from responsibility. True, bringing random men to your parents' house is somehow simply indecent. Sooner or later, she will need some place to continue her adventures. For example, this car. I thought how funny it would be to donate it to the local school for criminal law students. As perversely sweet as it sounds, the most satisfying thing about leaving this car to her was the lack of a spare tire. He was never there. This was one of my main arguments against buying this particular car when she asked my opinion. I remember her saying, all sweet and charming, that she would always have me there to help if she got a flat tire on the road. Now I could feel free to leave a note under her trunk mat saying, I bet you could use a spare tire right now. But I'm sure that sooner or later she will understand this herself. A few days after the lawyer spoke on the phone, they met in person to discuss some issues. Amy's side requested a meeting to discuss the situation with Haley. I didn't want her to interfere with my adoption of Haley, so I agreed for the sake of our daughter, and we met at Lauren's. I was sitting in the main conference room when Lauren walked in with Amy's lawyer and Amy herself. I never really understood what people meant when they said someone looked like they were in a storm, until I saw her. Her appearance was terrible. For the first few minutes, I thought that my eyes were deceiving me, that this was some kind of hallucination from hatred. But when Lauren glanced at me as if confirming Amy's appearance, I realized I wasn't going crazy. She lost a lot of weight, so much so that her face became a little sunken. She was never overweight and lost weight easily after both pregnancies. But now she looked like she was being groomed for a Florida crime drama. She had her hair cut short and looked like it hadn't been washed since the accident. I'm not sure what she could have worn to look better, but I do know that she got all her things back, so no one can blame me for her appearance. The lawyers began to discuss various issues, exchanging remarks. I felt Amy looking at me. I didn't want to look in her direction. If I looked, I would only want to express hatred and contempt. When I finally glanced in her direction, I wondered, where did that beautiful girl I once knew go? It was a real life fail. From a good-natured beauty in just 6 months, now I am just the guy she used. Luckily, the conversation soon turned to discussing Haley's situation, which helped take her mind off her appearance. They asked if we were trying to find Haley's biological father. I replied that nothing would be done in this direction until the divorce and custody issues were fully resolved. Then I asked if she remembered any names that could lead us to our father. I didn't like to even say it, and she didn't like to hear it, but the truth is the truth. She replied that she did not remember any names from this period of her life. I asked if she was going to stop me from legally adopting Haley. She replied that she would like my name never to be removed from my daughter's birth certificate, and she certainly wasn't going to stop me from putting it on it again. That was all I needed to know. At this point, I was ready to end the meeting. But no, before I could stand up and try to end the conversation, Amy asked me a question. Would you be able to forgive me and take me back as your wife after my first mistake if I confessed and swore that I would never fail again? This is a blow. It was a question she had probably asked herself over and over again since the first night she cheated. It was a question to which she already knew the answer. Me too. This was her attempt to express herself. She knew that for me, her betrayal was a betrayal, after which I would immediately and forever delete her from my life. We have discussed more than once how each of us would react to betrayal. I always said that if I ever found out that she cheated on me, I would never listen to a word she said again. But all this was before the betrayal, and after that there were only screams, excuses, and a heated atmosphere. After several minutes of silence, I reluctantly said that she already knew that I wouldn't give her a second chance. Then I asked her, if I had a random child from an affair and brought him home after 6 years, would she continue to care for him? Things went from bad to worse. She said that I am doing everything possible to hurt her now. I didn't deny it. She said that I am not her parents to punish bad behavior, meaning a civil suit. I made it clear to her that the punishment was a divorce, and the civil suit was an attempt to get back what I had lost and what I was entitled to. She accused me of being willing to destroy our children's lives in order to destroy hers. I said she looks like she's sitting on a crystal. She started crying and saying that she still loved me. To which I rolled my eyes. Her tears no longer evoke any sympathy from me. They only push me to be even tougher with her. I promised her that the children would always be fed and well-dressed, but at the same time, I made it clear to her that I didn't care if she went hungry or walked barefoot. Once upon a time, I was ready to do anything to make her happy. I asked, what else could I have done to keep you from betraying me? She replied that she had betrayed herself. I screamed that she had betrayed Haley, that she betrayed everyone in her life. Lawyers tried to reduce the intensity of the situation. Lauren proposed a temporary child visitation agreement. Knowing when she can see them will allow her to better schedule her doctor's appointments. I warned her that although I don't care what she does and it's none of my business, she shouldn't bring any strange men to the children. She said she wasn't dating anyone. She didn't like it, but she promised that if it came to that, it would be without children. I asked her, did anyone other than Rebecca know about her infidelities? She said that she only told her sister, and even then, only about the kiss after the first incident. The sister got furious and cursed her for 5 minutes straight. Amy knew she would never be able to tell her sister how far things had gone. No one except Rebecca knew about all the connections. Then she asked, is there a chance that we will undergo couples therapy to try to save the marriage? I asked her, why do I need a marriage without intimacy? She exploded that we always had sex. I explained that it was over now because I would never touch her dirty ass, given the number of her partners comparable to the number of victims of the COVID epidemic. Amy asked if I hated her. I'm not sure if she expected the answer yes or no, but with every fiber of my soul, absolutely. That's how things are. We're just waiting for the divorce case to go before a judge. A civil case cannot even be considered until the divorce proceedings are completed. Children cope given the circumstances. They see both sets of grandparents more often. If there is something positive in all this chaos, this is it. And yes, I understand that I need to let go of hatred. I go to therapy, but it took a while to find someone who was right for me. Even the therapist admits that I have many objective reasons to hate Amy. I'm not a person who seeks validation, but realizing that my hatred is not irrational really helps. My new therapist is helping me release my emotions and trying to help me let go. I'm not good at meditating, but this is something new for me. My first therapist was fine for the first 4 sessions. The first meeting is always more like an acquaintance, no matter how much information you have already provided in the application form. At first, everything went quite positively. She listened sympathetically and at the same time, encouragingly. But when we started discussing problems that arose before the betrayal, her tone changed. She seemed to hint that sometimes we ourselves do something that hurts or irritates our partner, but he does not tell us about it. If such problems smolder for weeks, months, or years, it becomes something of a powder keg, to the creation of which we also had a hand. I have enough pride and common sense to know that despite all my flaws and mistakes, nothing I've ever done can justify what Amy did. Nothing I did justifies even 1% of her actions. So I changed therapists. I tried a few sessions with a male therapist. He could understand the feeling of humiliation and the obsessive thoughts. He understood how overwhelming it all was. But I just didn't feel comfortable with him. Thank God I've already cried almost everything. But if I need to talk about some emotional things, I don't want to cry in front of a man. Men are here to drink and play sports. We don't discuss why Gary's wife is emotionally unavailable to him and doesn't understand his love language. At least I'm not like that. Part of me wanted to give him more of a chance, but I didn't see how there could be a connection between us. If that makes me sexist, then so be it. I'm just more comfortable trusting a woman. And finally, I found the right therapist. She was the only daughter in a family with 3 brothers, which gives her an idea about men. Her specialty is coping with infidelity and grief counseling. When I told her what brought me to her, she used half a box of tissues. She said she was surprised how well I was holding up. Still not sure if this was meant as a sign of support, or if she's really shocked that I haven't ended up in a mental hospital yet. For this post, I'll call my therapist Sarah. She helped me more than I expected. Just listening. She says that I am difficult to read, and that my behavior does not match my friendly personality. She noted that I use humor to diffuse tense situations and disarm people. I said that all the fun would be ruined if she denounced my humor in advance. She says I have to figure it out on my own. She is sure that she will help me. But rebuilding my life and myself is something I will have to do myself. I can't just pay someone to do all the work for me. I need to understand what my condition really is, fix what I can, and amputate what cannot be repaired. This will hurt, even more painful than I had already experienced. But I have to come to terms with what I've lost, because he is no longer there. The children also visit their therapist, 40 minutes individually with each of them and 40 minutes with the 3 of us twice a week. They're doing great. Psychotherapy helps them come to terms with the inevitable. I was a little worried about how the family sessions would go, given my feelings for their mother. I remained silent when the children expressed how much they missed their mother or wished we could be together again. I thought maybe I should show them the doll where Amy hurt me, but dolls don't have souls. Sometimes I feel like I don't have it anymore either. I try to be sociable and lean on friends, but considering what I have to go through, small talk seems too small. I know that my friends are already tired of my outpourings. I'd be tired too. I try not to go into tirades, but the betrayal still eats me up from the inside. It's always somewhere in the background. And of course, when we go out for drinks, they point at this or that girl. I understand that they are conventionally beautiful, but I have no desire to get to know them. And unlike my wife, hygiene alone would not allow me to engage in casual relationships, even if the opportunity presented itself. Moreover, none of these young girls left the establishment with thoughts of taking a ticket to their forefathers, because they could not sleep with me. The lack of interest was mutual, but it hasn't just changed the way I look at women. It's changed the way I look at people in general. I now doubt the personality and sincerity of everyone around me. Before all of this, Amy was someone I really admired. It makes me question other people in my life, both men and women I have admired over the years. She didn't make me a misogynist. She made me a misanthrope. Even though she may feel shame or guilt about what she did, I am sure that it would be quite easy for her to enter into a carnal relationship with another man. She'll start eating better, gain weight, and guys will start to be interested in her in no time. My opinion is that she will easily continue to live an intimate life. I can't, and I won't. I already feel dirty inside and out, knowing how much oatmeal, egg sweat, saliva, and stench from other men she splashed on my body. I feel like she has defiled me. She killed not only any desire for her, but also the desire to have sex in general. As strange as it may sound, Amy was the one for me. She was beautiful. I didn't need to look at other women. I thought we had something special. Now I just can't see beauty in women. My mind understands this, but my subconscious believes that all women are just like Amy and Rebecca. And this is my internal struggle. Whether she is fair or not, who knows? Someone wrote me a very supportive message of encouragement. This person then said that he was almost envious of me as a future bachelor with financial stability. He said that I would have no problems with women, and that I would be perceived as a high-ranking male. I thanked him for his support, not to mention that what he was looking forward to was a source of anxiety for me. I know people sleep with each other left and right every day, and everywhere. It's their business and those they sleep with. It's not mine. Good luck to them. I don't want a stranger, even a very attractive stranger, to touch me. I am a person who respects personal space. I can't imagine what it would be like to meet someone in a bar or through an app and, after a little chat, get intimate with them. Understanding that people can do this, stupidly take off their clothes and go into battle, without seeing a problem in this, amazes me. Obviously, in a world with Tinder and dating sites, my position is the exception. I would constantly think about how long ago they did this to someone else. The vast majority of people embrace the fast connection lifestyle. Amy's number of intimate partners would not be so unusual for a modern single woman. I think most guys would do the same if they could. I couldn't. And I wouldn't want to. And obviously never wanted to be with anyone who ever did that. Part of me thinks Amy was talking about her cheating on purpose. If she had just admitted what she did and we got divorced, maybe I could pick up the pieces and give someone else a chance someday. It felt like she wanted to destroy me so that I would never want to be with anyone again. Just because she can't be with me. The devil's plan. And no matter how many showers she took, no matter how much rubber she used, someone else's DNA still penetrated my life. Disgusting. I hope her entire household just rots away. When Amy and I were each other's only intimate partners, every act was pure and beautiful. Her first betrayal destroyed everything we had or could have had in an instant. Any person who becomes physically involved with someone in a relationship defiles and poisons that relationship forever. In a split second, our relationship is like a glass of cold milk. And the touch of her lips to the lips of another man is like a drop of ink into this milk. Just one drop. And it's still like milk. Don't mind the color change, it probably still tastes the same. Just drink, right? But instead of immediately telling me about that one drop so I could decide what to do next, she made me drink the whole glass. Moreover, she continued to feed me this, adding more and more of this toxic ink. Some people are like a glass of milk with one drop of ink. Amy is now a glass of ink with one drop of milk. She is a desecrated creature who is good for nothing but being a prostitute or meat and porn. I wish that the night she was conceived, someone would have run up and hit her father's bells so hard that they would cut into his spleen and he would no longer be able to have children. The world would be a better place without her. The things that most people enjoy when starting a new relationship cause me the greatest anxiety. I remember being breathless when I met Amy. I even had to get used to the fact that such a beautiful girl like her invaded my personal space. This is not due to low self-esteem. We were both open to each other, but we are introverts by nature. We gradually got used to each other, learned to kiss, and felt closeness. And I got used to these things very slowly. Everyone thinks teenagers are just walking hormones. But Amy and I weren't like that. We have moved very slowly in this regard. I was taught that this is how it should be. This was what I wanted, and she swore to me that she wanted it too. We both believed in it. We built everything slowly and deliberately, but now the very thought of being intimate with someone else disgusts me. And, of course, now the very thought of Amy acts on me like an antidote to Viagra. It's all too hard. Every day I feel more and more ashamed of being part of the human race. My life wasn't supposed to turn out this way. We had so many wonderful moments ahead of us as a family, but the memories are destroyed and these moments are buried. In the end, I loved Haley, but I had to let her go because our relationship was forced against our will. I tell her that if I had a choice, and I gave myself this choice, I would choose her as my daughter again. When the judge asks her if she wants me to adopt her, she will answer me with mutual love. The circle will close. Everything will fall into place as much as possible. I can never be her father. That title belongs to some guy who doesn't even know he has a 6-year-old daughter. But I'm the only dad she's ever known. Protector and breadwinner outside of any legal field. I did what I had to do to keep my sanity. Even when others questioned my actions or accused me of cruelty, I did what I felt was necessary to give Amy's 2 biggest victims the opportunity to claim what was never truly theirs. I made mistakes in how I handled this situation, and I will understand exactly what mistakes I made only when I completely go through this path. But I did my best. Update 5. I hope this post will be shorter than the previous one. I apologize if my previous masterpieces caused anyone eye strain or even an aneurysm. I assure you this was not my goal. Someone asked in the comments of a previous post about Rebecca, and if I had any contact with her. I'll explain how things are. At this point, I have not seen or communicated with Becky since that fateful morning. I don't know how important she is to Amy now. I don't know if they had any contact, but I can assume that they did. The children didn't say anything about Rebecca. All I know is what the kids tell me, which isn't much. However, a few weeks after everything went to hell, I confided in an old friend and told him what was going on. I chose this particular friend because his wife is a famous gossip. She's also a good friend of mine, so I didn't feel any guilt about using one of her negative qualities to my advantage. For those who don't know, Becky owns her own salon and employs 9 people when staffed. Since word began to slowly spread through our group of friends, 2 stylists have left the salon. I have no way of knowing whether they left because they got a better offer or in protest of her role in the collapse of my marriage. But I can hope for the latter. When everything is finally completed, I will easily and naturally talk about her dirty secrets. If it makes some people not want to work for her or visit her salon, great. But I will wait to see if my actions cause her any suffering. One day in the supermarket, I ran into Amy's sister. She hugged me and apologized for her sister's stupidity and immorality. I'm sure many here would tell me not to contact her at all since she is from the enemy camp. But I've always liked Mendy and her husband Doug, so I invited them and the kids to spend time by the pool. We had a barbecue. Doug watched the kids and grilled meat while Mendy and I talked. We tried not to let the children hear our conversation. Fortunately, they were interested in the pool and food, which allowed us to talk a lot. Without making the story too long, the gist is this. Amy's family knew she was cheating on me, not with just one man, but with several. But Amy pulled the wool over their eyes when it came to admitting the number of these men. She told Mandy and her parents that she had a couple of short flings after Jacob was born, until she was caught. When she used the word couple, I asked exactly how many people she considered a couple. Mendy replied, 2 or 3. I went and bought a folder of text messages between Amy and the guys she slept with so Mandy could see for herself. As she looked through everything, I explained that we had been able to confirm 47 different men with whom Amy had been intimate since Jacob's birth. I also explained that these 47 are just the tip of the iceberg, because we know that she often arranged one-off meetings through different apps. Mendy didn't know what to say. When she heard the confirmed number of men, she wanted to immediately call her parents to inform them and scold Amy. The very fact of cheating with so many men was bad enough news for Mendy. And then I added 2 + 2, and realized that no one in Amy's family knew that I was not Haley's father. I don't know who was more furious about this, Mendy or me. But Doug had to stop grilling to console his wife, who couldn't stop crying. She came to me from the other side of the picnic table and hugged me, repeating how sorry she was. Doug was shocked. He patted me on the back after making sure Mendy was okay and said, "We'd definitely have a drink together later in the week." My ex-wife may be a piece of crap, but her family seems to be pure gold. However, I will still be careful about how much I trust them. I told Mendy what really happened that morning and how I found out the results of the paternity test. She was shocked, to say the least. She said she wished I had punched Rebecca in the nose and that she had never loved her, even as a child. Mendy is 4 years older than Amy, Becky, and me. She said that when she was a high school student, she more than once caught Becca stealing cosmetics from her room without even thinking about apologizing. She admitted that she always despised Rebecca because she was always manipulative and liked to create drama in other people's lives. She even tried to be a big sister mentor to her, especially after Rebecca's father divorced her mother. But according to Mendy, Rebecca was always an ungrateful bitch who didn't listen to anyone. I asked if she knew that Amy originally wanted Becca to be her maid of honor. She didn't answer yes or no, but the stream of curse words made me realize she didn't know about it. I told her what Amy had told me in letters and in front of the lawyers. Mandy was shocked by Amy's reasoning, as was everyone else. She said their parents didn't raise them like that. She said that her sister always said that she didn't want to be with anyone but me, long before high school. I'm not sure if this means Amy was deceiving herself from an early age, or if her feelings have changed over time. I only know that people cannot truly love someone and at the same time freely give their body to others. Either love never happened or it died long before I realized it. Amy claimed that her heart belonged to me and always had. Now I know that this is complete nonsense, and I wonder if she was even capable of love, although it doesn't matter anymore. If her heart really belonged to me, I would sell it for transplantation to someone who would give more for it, even though I would have known that it was defective. After lunch, the kids continued to play, so I was able to talk at length with Doug and Mendy. She told him everything while I went to get ice cream for the kids and handed it out. And when I returned, I saw tears in Doug's eyes. He gave me a tight, brotherly hug before I sat down again. He asked about the guy I caught Amy with and how much damage I had done to him. All I could tell him was that when I left, the guy was unconscious and his lower left eyelid looked like it belonged to a hound dog because of how much it was sagging. The police didn't bother me, so I knew they didn't call the cops. But I understood that the fracture of his orbit would require surgery and I did not receive a bill for it. Doug said I should have killed the guy. I replied that if Amy and Becca hadn't jumped on my back to knock me down, I probably would have. But I'm glad I didn't do it. Doug asked if anyone had any idea who Haley's father really was. I explained that my beloved wife had slept with too many men to know for sure, but the search for the father will gain momentum as soon as all the divorce and civil proceedings are completed. Both were relieved to learn that Amy would be devastated in the divorce. We were both glad to hear that psychotherapy had helped the three of us a lot. When I said I was looking forward to Amy getting back to work so she could pay child support and a possible civil fine, they laughed. Doug said that if paternity fraud was a crime, Amy would have been sentenced to death. I told him that Amy might as well have committed motherhood fraud, because a woman capable of what she did is no longer a mother. About an hour after they left, my phone started blowing up with calls and messages. These were Amy's parents, as well as some unfamiliar numbers. Then Mendy called and I answered. I could hear her, but there was a lot of screaming and noise in the background. She went outside, away from the bustle, and said that she had told her parents the whole truth. Her father was busy throwing Amy's things into her car. Her mother cried and said what a shame they felt for raising such a whore. Call me old-fashioned, but even if your own mother calls you a slut, it's safe to say that you've been riding the route to Slutville for too long. I heard Amy crying and begging that she had nowhere to go, but instead of gloating that she got some of what was owed to her, I thought about the children. I don't mind Haley and Jacob staying at their grandparents' house. but any other place Amy might stay was completely inappropriate for children to be near her. If she had gone to Rebecca, I would never have let the kids be near that stupid hairdresser. Even if she could somehow find herself a hotel room on her modest income, I wouldn't trust her enough to be sure that she wouldn't bring some random passenger there, looking for some fun. I was glad that her family knew some of the truth, but I knew it would cause problems with the children. However, if she had not found a stable and safe place to live, the court would not have allowed her to see the children without supervision. Seeing them under supervision for an hour or 2 times a week will be painful, but this is the grave she has dug for herself with her hellish depravity. So whether it's a homeless shelter or a real ditch, I don't care at all. Mandy and I were still talking on the phone when I heard Amy come outside and ask if she was talking to me. Mandy asked what I wanted her to tell Amy. I probably shouldn't have told the truth because Amy snatched Mandy's phone and started begging me to forgive her. She asked why I was so insistent on ruining her life. I simply replied that it was because she destroyed mine. She assured me that I could get my life back if I just forgave her. I said that life is over and never really existed, because of her lies. And again she lied, swearing on the hoses that none of them meant anything to her. I said that they all meant more to her than me or her family's safety. Otherwise, she wouldn't have risked everything again and again. She asked why I leaked everything to her sister and parents. I asked why she herself had not been honest with them, especially about the fact that I was not Haley's father. She swore and said that I was her father. I swore back and said that yes, I am Haley's dad and always will be. But at least she should have told her family the truth. She said her parents were abandoning her and kicking her out. I said I was glad to hear that, and that I would do everything I could to make her life even worse. She said she loved me and asked how I could be so cruel to someone who loved me. I replied that she should have asked herself this question 6 years ago, because I know that she feels regret only because now she is losing everything, and people will find out the truth. What she has done makes her worthy of contempt and condemnation. What she is going through now with her family is exactly what she deserves. 3 days later, Lauren called me and said that Amy's lawyer wanted to set up a new meeting. We scheduled it for last Friday at Lauren's office. Let's put it this way. I had no desire to see or talk to Amy, but I understood that her de facto homeless situation could affect the court's decision regarding custody. As soon as we sat down, her lawyer said that Amy had been living in her car since her parents kicked her out. I asked why she didn't go live with Rebecca, since she was the one who helped her get into the situation. Amy didn't answer. Instead, she asked if there was a way for me to let her come home or agree to family therapy. I told her she needed to ask her parents if she could move back in with them. The house in which I and the children lived was close to whores, harlots, and prostitutes, and she and Becky were told to stay away. As for couples therapy, she could try it with whoever was stupid enough to marry her next. But I was sure that after such a life, she would never be able to be faithful to anyone again. The lawyer objected to my language and the harshness of my words. I told him that he was a sellout for even undertaking to defend such a whore, and asked if she was paying him for his services through OnlyFans or just sucking him off. Lauren put a hand on my shoulder to calm me down and suggested that everyone be more civilized. I asked for a break because I had already prepared a new portion of the verbal attack, and I needed to let off steam. We took a 20-minute break, and I went into my car to just be away from everyone. I thought about scrawling "Home Sweet Home" on Amy's car, but I knew the cameras were rolling, and I already had enough lawyers. I saw fast food trash in the passenger seat and a pile of clothes in the back seat. I'm trying to let go of my hatred with the help of a professional, but I see no reason to treat it with the slightest respect. Everything about it has become disgusting. Lauren urged me to keep my answers to yes or no whenever possible. I agreed to try, but I knew there was a limit to the amount of Amy's lies and excuses I could handle. She promised that she would try to end this meeting as soon as possible. When we sat down at the table again, I just looked at Amy and her lawyer with such hatred that without saying a word, I let them know that they could both go to hell. Lauren resumed the meeting by asking Amy if she had seen a therapist or gotten any help for herself. Amy said she didn't have time for this because she was going to physical therapy, and she didn't have the money because insurance didn't cover such services. Lauren asked, if we paid for her to have a few therapy sessions, would she go? My head turned towards Lauren so fast I thought I was going to get whiplash. But she kicked me under the table, letting me know that everything was under control. Amy's lawyer immediately said that Amy would only go to a therapist of her choice, regardless of who was paying. Lauren nodded and said that therapy could help her cope with her emotions and become a better mother in the future. I still thought Lauren was crazy for suggesting such a thing, but I decided to let her talk further. Amy's lawyer said they will discuss this and give us an answer later. Lauren said that even though she stands up to them as an attorney, as a woman she wants all women in the cases she handles to get the help they need. I won't lie. She said it so convincingly that for a second, I thought that my own lawyer had decided to betray me. Amy suggested marriage counseling for all of us. This time I pushed Lauren under the table, showing that I would not agree to this under any circumstances. Lauren nudged me back and said that if Amy attended a few therapy sessions and her psychologist thought family therapy would be helpful, then we might agree. I knew Lauren had a reason for her suggestions. I just wish she had told me ahead of time. I knew that I would find out later what tactics she was using, but for now, until the end of the meeting, I was at a loss. I asked Amy if all this cheap, meaningless hooking up with strangers was worth what she was going through now. I really wanted to know, did it feel like being a whore for a few years was worth it? I pointed out that she clearly liked it, otherwise she wouldn't have continued. I really wanted to know, was it worth losing a loving husband and custody of the children? Amy began to cry, and her tears seemed genuine this time before she told me that they weren't. I asked if she felt shame. I knew she felt a lot of regrets just because she got caught, but I wanted to know, does she feel ashamed that her family now knows the truth? She said she was very ashamed, especially now that her family knew about everything. I asked if she thought she could hide the truth from her family forever. She replied that she hoped that she could hide it at least until she returned to work and found a place to live, but she knew that the truth would come out sooner or later. She apologized for hurting me and said she never meant to do it. I told her that she didn't hurt me, but destroyed me. That every day, every damn day I feel pain. This pain is in my soul, but I feel it in my joints and muscles. But alas, no amount of ibuprofen brings relief. My heart is so broken that when she poisoned my soul, it spread to my body. On the best days, all I feel is numbness. On the worst days, tension fills my body, and sometimes depression causes physical pain. I wake up feeling exhausted. She cried listening to how her actions made me suffer. I asked her to answer. What have I ever done that could justify her cruel betrayal? She only cried harder. I asked what she thought she deserved from me and from life after what she had done. Not what she wants, but what she thinks is fair for someone who literally lost his life. All I heard were tears, but I was tired of tears and lack of answers. I was fed up. The meeting ended with Amy's lawyer trying to get her out of the office while she continued to ask me for forgiveness. I kept telling her to go home, wherever, because we were done. When they finally left, I pressed Lauren to explain why she had offered to pay for a therapist for Amy. She explained that this would be considered by the court as a favorable step on our part. It was also obvious that Amy was already on the edge. If a professional suggested or insisted that she needed to go to the hospital for her own good, well, so be it. In a depressed state, it is very easy to end up in a clinic for at least one night. Letting her see a therapist might help us if they could see where she's at. She deceived me for over 6 years. I don't feel guilty about hiding my real intentions as to why I really want her to see the shrink. If Lauren thinks that the possibility of family therapy will motivate her to see a psychologist, so be it. Amy is good at digging her own grave. I hope this continues. Yes, I understand that this update is by no means short, but I tried to make it as concise as possible. The children are doing well. Jacob plays baseball and became a pitcher since he is the tallest on his team. He serves and hits well. We're going to the Red Sox-Tigers game next week with Doug and his 2 sons. Miss Haley is still as beautiful and sweet as ever. She loves the pool, and it was great to host friends and their kids to enjoy it together. I want to raise two kids who are too busy with life to be on their phones. Perhaps this will make them different from everyone else, and they will feel like strangers in society, but they will mind other people's children. Thank you all so much for your kind words and support. Every day now brings new challenges, but knowing that I have so many people behind me that support me means more than I can express in words. Peace to all. Final update. In a year. A few weeks ago, I decided to log back into my account, which I hadn't logged in for almost a year. There were a lot of messages and comments with questions about how things were going for the children and me and how it all ended. At first, I wanted to ignore it all, log out of my account, and never log in again, because I was finally able to return to normal life and set things right for myself and the children. And returning to the past only prevents you from moving forward. But the advice that I received from you, being at the very bottom, gave me great support and was very useful from the very beginning of this story. Gratitude to those kind people who did all this for me is the reason why I am writing this latest update. Because I truly owe a lot to those who helped me navigate through a minefield that I didn't even know existed at the time. It's been so long since my last post that most readers have probably forgotten about my story. And this is understandable. This post will also be long, and for that I apologize again. But a lot of time has passed since then, and many events have happened that cannot be explained in 2 or 3 paragraphs. Because it all ended on a much bigger scale than I could have ever imagined. So what we ended up with was that I was in the process of legally adopting Haley after the court ruled that I was not her biological father. My lawyer, Lauren, tried to get Amy to see a therapist of her choice in hopes that it would help me. Lauren recommended 2 local mental health centers to Amy's lawyer, saying that we would pay for the sessions or Amy could choose any other specialist she wanted to see. I had serious doubts about paying for her sessions or doing anything to help her. If you learn nothing from this whole story, then at least take on board the only advice that will really be useful to you. Whether you love lawyers or hate them, always listen to your lawyer. Without going into too much detail, I will say briefly, Amy chose a local psychiatrist who immediately realized that she was mentally unstable. For her own good, he admitted Amy to the local mental hospital for overnight observation. That night turned into several months in different mental institutions. Due to medical confidentiality, I will never know her exact diagnosis, but her lawyer said that every time he saw Amy, she was heavily sedated and completely out of her mind. The months Amy spent trying on designer straitjackets delayed the finalization of her divorce and child custody hearings. However, since Amy was not contesting the divorce and her lawyer was available to represent her, this did nothing to slow down my adoption of Haley. Despite all the pain I'd been through recently, listening to Haley answer the judge's questions made me incredibly happy. Haley didn't know that she had once been declared not my daughter at my insistence. So she found it funny when the judge asked if she wanted me to be her dad, and I was so proud of her, although she didn't understand why. She was just happy when I said I loved her and hugged me for the first time as her adoptive father. I was glad that Jacob was there too, but I was even more grateful that Amy wasn't there. Neither Jacob nor Haley really understood what was happening at the hearing. But now Haley is officially my daughter, even if we don't share DNA. When I saw Amy cheating, all my feelings for her disappeared. Until I was able to reunite with Haley, I was terribly afraid that because of her mother's actions, I would lose love for her or begin to hate her. It was such a relief to feel again the love I had always felt for her. I wouldn't be wrong if I couldn't overcome it, no matter what anyone thought. If paternity is so important in the legal system that a man is forced to pay for a child that is not his, then it must be equally important when a man wants to give up a child that is not his biological one. However, unfortunately, it is often much more difficult to refuse. But damn, I really needed Haley in my life. I've already lost too much, and she needed a father who loved her all her life. Honestly, there will always be a small part of me inside that will be broken because she is not my biological daughter. It is impossible to express in words how devastating this realization and acceptance was. I know I'm doing the best I can as a parent in this situation. I believe that the time and love we give to children is much more important than any material possessions. This will always be my priority. Other than Amy's mental problems, there was no reason why the divorce should not have been finalized. She didn't receive a penny from me, and even her own lawyer admitted that in her situation, she has no chance of getting custody at this time. If and when she leaves her paradise room, if she finds a safe place to live, she can sue for some kind of visitation or custody rights. The court appointed a legal assistant who had to confirm that Amy was aware of her actions. Her lawyer had her sign the divorce papers in front of witnesses and had them notarized. A week later, I had to appear in court with Lauren so the lawyers could close the remaining issues before the judge. 2 weeks later, I officially got divorced from the biggest mistake and waste of my life. I should have been happy about this, and I really was. Signing the papers was a symbolic nail in the coffin of our marriage. However, for some reason, this moment no longer brought me such a huge relief as I expected. I was amazed at how strongly Amy's family stuck to their position about giving her up after they learned the truth. I'm sure part of this was due to their desire to remain on good terms with me so they could see their children. Although her parents and sister knew that Amy was in a psychiatric ward, they did not even try to visit her. And of course, neither did I. But it was obvious from our conversations with her parents how shocked they were by their daughter's actions. They were ashamed that people now knew what their daughter turned out to be like. I could understand them and even sympathize with them. The realization that I had allowed myself to be physically intimate with a woman through whom more fluid passed than a garden hose in the heat of July made me feel ashamed. Ashamed of myself. Mendy made sure everyone knew what her sister and Rebecca were really up to. Although she, of course, did not talk about faking paternity. Through social networks and personal conversations with friends, rumors spread, and within a month, almost everyone knew about Amy's many years of infidelity and moral decline. They were determined to cause a scandal if they ever met her. It was a little humiliating for me. Everyone knew how stupidly gullible I was. But at the end of the day, in a relationship, you either trust or you don't. And she never gave me a single reason not to trust. It was only a few months before she was caught that I began to even suspect that she might be cheating. Now, looking back, I see that I missed several warning signs, but she skillfully disguised herself. I should have banned her girls' nights back when her depression was over, just on principle. But the night she didn't come home was the only time that happened. She usually called if she was at least 15 minutes late, which was extremely rare. I was really worried at the time because it wasn't like her at all. I wanted to make sure she was okay. I know many people may think I'm an idiot or blind for not suspecting anything for so long, but since she left everything exclusively at the intimate level and limited the number of meetings with each man, this left no traces that could be followed. She wasn't attached to her phone or hiding it, so I had no desire to check on her. She saw herself as a loving wife and mother. Many friends told me personally that they were shocked to learn about her infidelity and insisted that they would have told me if they had known. They had no idea, and neither did I. If Amy wore a dress without underwear on a windy day and everyone within a 12-meter radius could see it, everything would be obvious to me and to everyone else. But everything she represented to everyone was a complete lie. In the end, no one wanted anything to do with her. No one began to care about her future, even if she was kept in a mental hospital for the rest of her life. The only problem with no one keeping in touch with Amy was that we were caught off guard. No one told us when she was released. Laws prevented the hospital from providing this information to us due to physician-patient confidentiality. I don't know if she convinced the doctors she was fine or if they just thought they had done everything they could for her, but she was discharged at noon on Tuesday. Somehow she got from the hospital to her car, which was parked at her lawyer's office, and from there she drove to her children's school. When she was informed that she could not see or pick up the children, she made a real scene so that the school administration would call me. I told them to call the police and promised to come as soon as possible. On the way to the car, I called Mendy to tell her that her little sister was no longer living in the rental house on Madness Island. I told her I didn't know if Amy was officially released or if she ran away, but I'd find out when I got to school. Mandy said she would call her parents, my parents and Doug, to keep them informed of what was happening. When I arrived, 2 police cars and an ambulance were already parked at the entrance with their lights flashing. I parked, got out, and walked to the nearest officer, introducing myself as my ex-husband. I was directed through a side door into the school cafeteria. I was relieved to learn that neither Jacob nor Haley knew what was happening in the waiting room, and school was not interrupted. The police sat Amy down at the dining room table. When she saw me, she tried to get up, demanding to see the children. She was kept from approaching me, and I asked if they had checked with the psychiatric ward to see if she had been officially discharged. Police said the hospital could not release certain information without a warrant, but confirmed that she had indeed been discharged. Amy started crying and demanding to see the children. I told the officer that I had full custody, and in such an emotionally unstable state, there was no way I would let her see them. She screamed again that she wanted to see the children. I told her that she needed to apply through a lawyer to get visitation rights, but until I saw an evaluation of her mental state from a specialist, I would consider her unfit to parent. A manic mother. She stated that her children are the only people who still love her. I said that's probably true, but they're just kids and don't understand what's what yet. The policeman laughed but quickly pulled himself together. Amy tried to come towards me but was held back. She stated that she had not seen her children for several months, and that only thoughts about them helped her survive her stay in the land of lobotomies. I explained that I didn't care about her struggles or the consequences of her actions, but I would never subject our children to her lies and drama. I asked the police officer to help me apply for a restraining order to keep Amy away from me and the children. He agreed to file a preliminary application on my behalf, but explained that a judge would have to make the decision. He then explained to Amy that since I would not allow her to see the children, she needed to leave the school grounds immediately and not return until she filed a court order for partial custody. The police have already spoken to the director. To my surprise, she did not create an even bigger scandal. Apparently, she realized that at that moment she could not achieve anything. She grabbed her bag and keys and, accompanied by an officer, walked to the car, got in, and drove away. And I, along with another police officer, filled out an application for a warrant and also talked with the school principal. When school ended, I picked up Jacob and Haley and we went home. About a couple of kilometers after we left the school, I noticed Amy leaving a fast food restaurant right after we passed by. I immediately turned around the nearest corner and made a couple more turns to find myself back on the same street. I saw her car ahead and sped up to see what she was doing. She didn't even notice that I was behind her. It was obvious that she was looking out for someone, and that someone was us. The children didn't even recognize her car, fortunately. One commenter advised me to install front and rear cameras with audio in the car. They gave me the video footage I needed to prove that Amy was following me and the children, despite police warnings to stay away. I drove straight to the police station and showed them the CCTV footage of Amy waiting for us to drive past and then driving after us but losing sight of us. I was assured that the evidence would be presented to the judge and that I would receive a restraining order shortly. 2 days later, while I was at work, the police called me and informed me that a warrant had been issued and handed over to Amy that morning. She now had to stay at least 200 meters away from me and the children at all times. She was also prohibited from contacting me and the children in any way except through her lawyer. I was told to contact the police immediately if she violated the order. I felt some relief knowing that the law was on my side, but I expected that she would try to violate the order and contact me or the children. To my surprise, there was no word from Amy. Her sister said she has not tried to contact her or their parents. I was sure she would try to find free legal help to file for partial custody, but no one contacted Lauren. 2 months passed, and honestly, the longer we went without hearing from her, the more stressful it became. But about 3 months ago, when I returned home, there was a large manila envelope in my mailbox. The address was handwritten, and the return address was Sydney, Australia. The stamps were Australian. I couldn't even imagine who could send me this envelope and why. Inside was an extremely long letter from Amy, in which she explained where she was and assured that she would not return. I was stunned. Her devilish logic, which allowed her to sleep peacefully at night, amazed me even more. Her manic message filled in many of the blanks about what she had experienced and what led her to this state. She wrote that she almost had a nervous breakdown during her first psychotherapy. For the first 2 months in a psychiatric clinic, she was under strong sedatives, antidepressants, and antipsychotics. She said that all this time she just wanted to go to her forefathers. Through therapy and group discussions, she tried to understand why she acted the way she did. She said that other patients during discussions looked at her like she was a complete idiot for ruining everything. They had broken families, abusive relationships, drugs, and violence. Her life was much simpler compared to their suffering. When it finally dawned on her how much she had ruined everything and that her old life would not return, she had another breakdown. The first breakdown was due to the fact that she was faced with the past. The second is because she saw her future, or rather its absence. She then went on to talk about her feelings of loss and heartache in some pathetic attempt to gain sympathy. Amy had the audacity to claim that the morning I caught her with another man, she was upset that I immediately stopped loving her forever. She claimed that over all these years, when she felt guilty about what she had done, she justified herself by saying that I would not love her if I knew, and she wanted me to love her always, under any circumstances, just unconditionally. She was right. My love for her disappeared instantly as soon as I saw her voice with another man. She wrote that realizing that I no longer loved her broke her heart, because despite everything she did, she still loved me. She swore that having sex with other men didn't mean she loved me any less. I wonder how she would treat me if she hated me. She had the nerve to call me her best friend and soulmate. She claimed that she did not want any romantic involvement with anyone other than me. She felt real excitement when men directly said that they wanted to fuck her properly. She was thrilled to enjoy this without thinking about any consequences, simply indulging in primitive instincts. She admitted that after cheating on her several times, Rebecca's friend convinced her that humans were never meant to be monogamous. Amy said she would be more than willing to let me sleep with other women, but she knew I would never want that. She claimed that being able to sleep with someone in a store and then go home to cook dinner made her life less desperate and boring. She tried to justify her actions by saying that I also benefited from her sleeping with other men, because it made her a better lover for me. But an absolutely dead intimate life would suit me much better than a wife who behaves like another cheap girl with a no tattoo and a down arrow. And what normal man would even approach a woman who gives herself up so easily? These men are just as cheap. Call me old-fashioned, and I'm sure many who read my story have called me much worse. But if a lady feels the need to explore her sexuality, being a wild cat is her choice. She has every right to do this. It seems that few people today do not live this way, but the time for such exploration and casual relationships should be long before you have children. This should happen much earlier than when you get married. And it certainly shouldn't get to the point where you cheat on your husband with so many men that you give birth to a child from some stranger, and tell your husband that this child is his. However, if your search has turned you into someone whom even the most desperate guy would not want to marry, then so be it. If Amy had told me at any point in our relationship that she needed to break up so she could be intimate with strangers, I would have been completely fine with it. Yes, this would show me that she does not have morals, loyalty, and honesty, qualities that I was still looking for in a wife. But at least such huge consequences could have been avoided. I would absolutely not care with whom and how many times she had sex, if I were not on this list. But Amy chose to live a lie. And now, just as she cannot turn around her former lovers and pretend that nothing happened, I cannot go back in time and remove her from my life. Words don't mean anything. Her actions prove that she was unworthy of anyone's time, much less love. She'll end up last on the dance floor in some cheap bar somewhere in Australia, willing to do anything for any drunk who still finds her attractive in 15 minutes of conversation. She wrote how much it broke her heart to hear that I had applied to have my name removed from Haley's birth certificate. She understood that after what she did, I couldn't even look at her, and our daughter was a constant reminder of all this. She was hurt that I applied to adopt Haley as my daughter because it showed her that even though I couldn't give a second chance to her, there was enough love in my heart to give the product of her betrayal a second chance. She admitted that she struggled with feelings of jealousy towards Haley. The knowledge that her children would grow up with everything she had taken for granted, and now lost forever, was killing her. Amy's words clearly showed how self-centered she was. She couldn't even sincerely regret what she had done for the sake of her own children. She wholeheartedly did not want to realize that important moments in her children's lives would pass without her, and presented their photographs on social networks as a reminder of what she had lost. It made her feel like she was being pierced with a dagger through the heart. She said that after she was released from the hospital and the incident occurred at school, she tried to reconnect with old friends. Some who agreed to talk to her expressed their opinion bluntly, saying they wanted nothing to do with her. Most behaved as if they didn't know her and simply ignored her. Some warned her that if it ever turned out that she was with their husband or boyfriend, she would be in trouble. As a result, she realized that her hometown had become a terrible, toxic place for her. Her former bosses and many colleagues knew everything, so going back to work was not an option. The other driver's insurance company paid her handsomely for damages while she was locked out, but she eventually had to stop going to physical therapy, and the insurance company considered the accident and her injuries closed. She had no more money. It was not immediately possible to find a job nearby so that I could see my children. She had to survive on her own. She pawned a few things to somehow make ends meet and began looking for work on the internet. That's when she met some guy from Australia. According to her, they corresponded for several days, and he invited her to come visit. Amy had been thinking about cashing out her retirement account for a long time, but was afraid of the huge tax penalty she would have to pay at the end of the year. The invitation to Australia was the last straw. She cashed out everything she had. She wrote that he is a very good person, and he has a son who needs a mother. Poor child. He got Anna Karenina as a mother, and his father got Amber Heard as a wife. It's safe to say that he has no idea what she's done or what she's capable of, but now it's his problem. She will become an Australian citizen, will not pay taxes in the US, and will never be my problem again. This was the last message she sent, and hopefully the last I ever get from her. I'm even ashamed to be so indifferent, but I sympathize with the citizens of Australia because now another dangerous species will appear in their ecosystem. 2 weeks later, I officially got divorced from the biggest mistake and waste of my life. I should have been happy about this, and I really was. Signing the papers was a symbolic nail in the coffin of our marriage. However, for some reason, this moment no longer brought me such a huge relief as I expected. I was amazed at how strongly Amy's family stuck to their position about giving her up after they learned the truth. I'm sure part of this was due to their desire to remain on good terms with me so they could see their children. Although her parents and sister knew that Amy was in a psychiatric ward, they did not even try to visit her. As am I, of course. But it was obvious from our conversations with her parents how shocked they were by their daughter's actions. They were ashamed that people now knew what their daughter turned out to be like. I could understand them. Even after she was leaking more moisture than a garden hose in hot July, it made me deeply ashamed of being intimate with her. Mendy made sure everyone knew what her sister and Rebecca were doing, although she, of course, did not talk about faking paternity. Through social networks and personal conversations with friends, rumors spread, and within a month, almost everyone knew about Amy's many years of infidelities and moral decline. They were all determined to cause a scandal if they ever met her. It was somewhat humiliating for me. Everyone knew how stupidly gullible I was. But at the end of the day, in a relationship, you either trust or you don't. And she never gave me a single reason not to trust. It was only a few months before I caught her that I began to have any suspicion that she might be cheating. Now, looking back, I see that I missed several warning signs, but she skillfully rushed about. Stopping her girls' nights out when her depression lifted was just a matter of principle. But the night she didn't come home was the only time that happened. She usually called if she was at least 15 minutes late, which was extremely rare. I was really worried at the time because it wasn't like her at all, and I wanted to make sure she was okay. I know many people may think I'm an idiot or blind for not suspecting anything for so long. But since she left everything exclusively at the intimate level, and limited the number of meetings with each man, she left no traces that could be followed. She wasn't attached to her phone and didn't hide it. Therefore, I had no desire to check it. She saw herself as a loving wife and mother. Many friends told me personally that they were shocked to learn about her infidelities and assured me that they would tell me if they knew. They had no idea. So do I. If Amy wore a dress without underwear on a windy day, and everyone within a 12-meter radius could see it, everything would be obvious to me and to everyone else. But everything she represented to everyone was a complete lie. As a result, no one wanted anything to do with her, and no one cared about her future, even if she is kept in a mental hospital for the rest of her life. The only problem with no one keeping in touch with Amy was that we were caught off guard. No one told us when she was released. Laws prevented the hospital from providing this information to us due to physician-patient confidentiality. I don't know if she convinced the doctors that there was nothing wrong with her, or if they just thought they had done everything they could for her. But she was discharged at noon on Tuesday. Somehow she made it from the hospital to her car, which was parked at her lawyer's office. And from there she drove to her children's school. When she was informed that she could not see or pick up the children, she made quite a scene so that the school administration would call me. I told them to call the police and promised to come as soon as possible. On the way to the car, I called Mendy to tell her that her little sister was no longer living in the rental house on Madness Island. I told her I didn't know if they let her out or if she ran away, but I'd find out when I got to school. Mandy said she would call her parents, my parents and Duck, to keep them informed of what was happening. When I arrived, 2 police cars and an ambulance were already parked at the entrance with their lights flashing. I parked, got out, and walked towards the nearest officer. Introducing myself as my ex-husband, I was directed through a side door into the school cafeteria. I was relieved to learn that neither Jacob nor Haley knew what was happening in the waiting room, and school was not interrupted. The police sat Amy down at the dining room table, and when she saw me, she tried to get up, demanding to see the children. She was restrained from approaching me, and I asked if they had checked with the psychiatric ward and released her. Police said the hospital could not release certain information without a warrant, but she was discharged. Amy started crying and demanding to see the children. I told the officer that I had full custody, and in such an emotionally unstable state, there was no way I would let her see them. She screamed again that she wanted to see the children. I replied that she needed to apply through a lawyer to obtain visitation rights. But until I see an assessment of her mental health from a specialist, I will consider her an unfit, manic mother. She stated that her children are the only people who still love her. I said that's probably true, but they're just kids and don't understand what's what yet. The policeman laughed but quickly pulled himself together. Amy tried to come towards me but was held back. She stated that she had not seen her children for several months, and that only thoughts about them helped her survive her stay in the land of the lobotomy. I explained that I didn't care about her difficulties or the consequences of her actions, but there is no way I will subject our children to her lies and drama. I asked the police officer to help me apply for a restraining order to keep Amy away from me and the children. He agreed to file a preliminary application on my behalf, but explained that a judge would have to make the decision. He then explained to Amy that since I would not allow her to see the children, she needed to leave the school grounds immediately and not return until she filed a court order for partial custody. The police have already spoken to the director. To my surprise, she did not create an even bigger scandal. Apparently, she realized that at that moment she could not achieve anything. She grabbed her bag and keys and, accompanied by an officer, walked to the car, got in, and drove away. And I, along with another police officer, filled out an application for a warrant and also talked with the school principal. When school ended, I picked up Jacob and Haley and we went home. About a couple of kilometers after we left the school, I noticed Amy leaving a fast food restaurant right after we passed. I immediately turned around the nearest corner and made a couple more turns to find myself back on the same street. I saw her car ahead and sped up to see what she was doing. She didn't even notice that I was behind her. It was obvious that she was looking out for someone, and that someone was us. The children didn't even recognize her car, fortunately. One commenter advised me to install front and rear cameras with audio in the car. They gave me the video footage I needed to prove that Amy was following me and the children, despite police warnings to stay away. I drove straight to the police station and showed them the CCTV footage of Amy waiting for us to drive by, and then driving after us but losing sight of us. I was assured that the evidence would be presented to the judge and that I would receive a restraining order shortly. 2 days later, while I was at work, the police called me and informed me that a warrant had been issued and handed over to Amy that morning. She now had to stay at least 200 meters away from me and the children at all times. She was prohibited from contacting me and the children in any way except through her lawyer. I was told to contact the police immediately if she violated the order. I felt some relief knowing that the law was on my side, but I expected that she would try to violate the order and contact me or the children. To my surprise, no one heard a word from Amy. Her sister said she has not tried to contact her or their parents. I was sure she would try to find free legal help to file for partial custody, but no one contacted Lauren. 2 months passed, and honestly, the longer we went without hearing from her, the more stressful it became. But about 3 months ago, when I returned home, there was a large manila envelope in the mail. The address was handwritten, and the return address was listed as Sydney, Australia. The stamps were Australian. I couldn't even imagine who could send me this envelope and why. Inside was an extremely long letter from Amy, in which she explained where she was and assured that she would not return. I was stunned. Her words, her devilish logic, which allowed her to sleep peacefully at night, amazed me even more. Her manic message filled in many of the blanks about what she had experienced and what led her to this state. She wrote that she almost had a nervous breakdown during her first psychotherapy. For the first 2 months in a psychiatric clinic, she was under strong sedatives and on various antidepressants and antipsychotics. She said that all this time she just wanted to go to her forefathers. Through therapy and group discussions, she tried to understand why she acted the way she did. She said that other patients during discussions looked at her like she was a complete idiot for ruining everything. They had broken families, abusive relationships, drugs, and violence. Her life was much simpler compared to their suffering. When it finally dawned on her how much she had ruined everything and that her old life would not return, she had another breakdown. The first breakdown was due to the fact that she was faced with the past. The second, due to the fact that she saw her future, or rather, the lack of it. She then went on to talk about her feelings of loss and heartache in some pathetic attempt to gain sympathy. Amy had the audacity to claim that the morning I caught her cheating, she was upset that I immediately stopped loving her forever. She claimed that over the years when she felt guilty about what she had done, she justified herself by saying that I wouldn't love her if I found out. And she wanted me to love her always, under any circumstances. Just unconditionally. She was right. My love for her disappeared instantly as soon as I saw her voice with another man. She wrote that realizing that I no longer loved her broke her heart because despite everything she did, she still loved me. She swore that having sex with other men didn't mean she loved me any less. I wonder how she would treat me if she hated me. She had the nerve to call me her best friend and soulmate. She claimed that she did not want any romantic involvement with anyone other than me. She felt real excitement when men directly said that they wanted to fuck her properly. She was thrilled to enjoy this without thinking about any consequences, simply indulging in primitive instincts. She admitted that after cheating on her several times, her friend Rebecca convinced her that humans were never meant to be monogamous. Amy said she would be more than willing to let me sleep with other women, but she knew I would never want that. She claimed that being able to sleep with someone in a store and then go home to cook dinner made her life less desperate and boring. She tried to justify her actions by saying that I also benefited from her sleeping with other men, because it made her a better lover for me. But an absolutely dead intimate life would suit me much better than a wife who behaves like another cheap girl with a no tattoo and an arrow down. And what normal man would even approach a woman who gives herself up so easily? These men are just as cheap. Call me old-fashioned, and I'm sure many who read my story have called me much worse. But if a lady feels the need to explore her intimacy, Being a wildcat is her choice. She has every right to do this. It seems that few people today do not live this way. But the time for such exploration and casual relationships should be long before you have children. This should happen much earlier than you get married. And it certainly shouldn't get to the point where you cheat on your husband with so many men that you give birth to a child from some stranger and tell your husband that this child is his. However, if your search has turned you into someone that even the most desperate guy wouldn't want to marry, then so be it. If Amy had told me at any point in our relationship that she needed to break up so she could have sex with strangers, I would have been completely fine with that. Yes, it would show me that she does not have the morals, loyalty, and honesty that I look for in a wife. But at least such huge consequences could have been avoided. I wouldn't care at all who and how many times she had sex with if it weren't for me on this list. But Amy chose to live a lie. And now, just as she cannot turn around her former lovers and pretend that nothing happened, I cannot go back in time and remove her from my life. Words don't mean anything. Her actions prove that she was unworthy of anyone's time, much less love. She'll end up last on the dance floor in some cheap bar somewhere in Australia, willing to do anything for any drunk who still thinks she's attractive. Within 15 minutes of communication, she wrote how much it broke her heart to hear that I had applied to have my name removed from Haley's birth certificate. She understood that after what she did, I couldn't even look at her, and our daughter was a constant reminder of all of this. She was hurt that I applied to adopt Haley as my daughter because it showed her that even though I couldn't give a second chance to her, there was enough love in my heart to give the product of her betrayal a second chance. She admitted that she struggled with feelings of jealousy towards Haley. The knowledge that her children would grow up with everything she had taken for granted and had now lost forever was killing her. The words clearly showed how self-centered she was. She couldn't even put her own children first. She wholeheartedly did not want to realize that important moments in her children's lives would pass without her, and presented their photographs on social networks as a reminder of what she had lost. It made her feel like she was being stabbed in the heart with a dagger. She said that after she was released from the hospital following the incident at school, she tried to reconnect with old friends. Some who agreed to talk to her expressed their opinion bluntly, saying they wanted nothing to do with her. Most behaved as if they didn't know her and simply ignored her. Some warned her that if it ever turned out that she was with their husband or boyfriend, she would be in trouble. As a result, she realized that her hometown had become a terrible, toxic place for her. Her former bosses, many colleagues knew everything, so returning to work was not an option. The other driver's insurance company paid her handsomely for damages while she was locked out, but she eventually had to stop going to physical therapy, and the insurance company considered the accident and her injuries closed. She had no more money. It was not immediately possible to find a job nearby in order to be able to see her children, and she had to survive on her own. She pawned a few things to somehow make ends meet and began looking for work on the internet. That's when she met some guy from Australia. According to her, they corresponded for several days and he invited her to come visit. Amy had been thinking about cashing out her retirement account for a long time, but was afraid of the huge tax penalty she would have to pay at the end of the year. The invitation to Australia was the last straw. She cashed out everything she had. She wrote that he is a very good person and he has a son who needs a mother. Poor child, he got Anna Karenina as a mother, and his father got Amber Heard as a wife. It's safe to say that he has no idea what she's done or what she's capable of. But now it's his problem. She will become an Australian citizen, will not pay taxes in the US, and will never be my problem again. That was the last message she sent, and hopefully the last I'll ever hear from her. I'm even ashamed to be so indifferent, but I sympathize with the citizens of Australia because now another dangerous species will appear in their ecosystem. Yes, I'm happy that she left, and I have every right to do so. But Australia, my sincere condolences. Providing her with antipsychotics and doctors to treat her STDs would require so much money that it could bankrupt your public healthcare system. Of course, I hope that you will have it there. But if the possibility of arrest upon return for tax evasion, with a penalty of time spent in federal prison, is an even better outcome. My therapist helped me a lot, especially in working with anger, although you can't tell from this text. During one intense session, my therapist and I had an epiphany. For a long time, I was much angrier at myself than I was at Amy. People talk about forgiveness and how it frees. I had so much anger inside me that I thought 100% of it was directed at Amy. It turned out no. Despite all its shortcomings, I held myself to a higher ethical level. I hated myself because I couldn't believe I had chosen my life partner so poorly. Yes, Amy was a lying whore, but in the end, I was the one who chose that whore and ruined my own life. Now I can say with confidence that it would have been much better if I had never loved Amy. Many people asked about Rebecca. It turned out that after Amy was kicked out of her parents' house, she actually went to Rebecca. Apparently, my ex decided that Rebecca should have at least given her a place to live after she contributed to the collapse of our marriage. Rebecca believed that she had done nothing special. She had simply allowed Amy to do what she wanted to do and did not owe her anything. This is an interesting topic for debate. I don't know which of them won, but this friendship ended in fights, swearing, and hair-pulling. Anyway, rumors that Rebecca was involved in the destruction of my marriage reached others, and she fell on hard times. I don't use social media, but I was told that she lost a lot of followers and friends. She was shamed both online and offline. 2 stylists left her salon because of what she did. The remaining employees were constantly faced with questions from clients. How can they continue to work in this salon? And are they planning to leave too? After a month or two, she couldn't pay the rent and the salon had to close. Last we heard, Rebecca had taken a job as a hostess at her brother's restaurant in Connecticut. When she left town, I wanted to bulldoze her apartment like Forrest Gump tore down Jenny's house because of all the dirty sex acts that happened there. But the neighbors in the other 2 apartments did not like this idea, and many people in the comments hinted that there was something between me and my lawyer, Lauren. I thought they were all just crazy, but it turned out that, as usual, I simply do not notice when a woman shows interest. After the divorce was finalized, and since she didn't represent me in the civil suit that never materialized, we went out for drinks with her and a few other co-workers to celebrate the victory. As everyone gradually began to leave, she said that she wanted to discuss one more matter with me before I left. I thought she was going to ask me to leave a positive review for her company on the website or something like that. But she surprised me by saying that after working on my case, she truly appreciated how devoted and faithful a husband I was, and still am to my children. She admitted that during our communication during the divorce, she began to feel attracted to me, but could not admit it since she was my lawyer. She said that it was difficult for her to understand whether I had sympathy for her, since I was obviously not an ordinary person, but she still decided to try. That was very nice to hear, especially after you found out that you weren't good enough for your wife. Not cheated with many men. Lauren said this long before I gave her the bonus she deserved, so despite my disbelief, I think she was sincere in what she said. She simply told me that if I ever wanted to have a drink or talk, to call her without hesitation. Lauren is a beautiful woman, and no one doubts that. Except perhaps for people with poor eyesight. She's smart, talented, she has it all. Obviously, she frequents the courtroom. It's important for lawyers to look good in the courtroom. She dresses stylishly and attractively, which a polite gentleman like me appreciates. At one hearing, when she came to court in a pinstripe suit, it seemed to me that the judge would be ready to give me custody of his with my own children, just because I saw her. Even as cynical as I am, I have to admit that she would be a great choice for any man he decides to ask out. But for me, alas, all these efforts are not worth it. I already know that I will subconsciously judge her for her past, which she definitely does not deserve, and which she cannot influence. And, unfortunately, any women in whom I feel even the slightest interest will face the same unfair judgment. Many men wrote to me, advising me to go on a dating site and find a random woman to hook up with in order to get over the fact that Amy was the only one I was with. Sorry guys, but I can never do that. A friend of mine showed me local profiles on Tinder, but that's not my thing. If I wanted to close the gestalt and have a second intimate experience, as one of the commentators advised, I would choose Lauren. It pisses me off that Amy took away something that I used to really enjoy and cut that part out of my life forever. Now, even thinking about those moments of intimacy makes me sick, knowing that she did the same things, and even more perverted, with other men. In the eyes of most people in Western society, the fact that I have only been with one woman makes me either too reserved or just a loser. But I feel so dirty, like I'm a Victorian streetwalker just for having sex with Amy. She took away everything that made intimacy special for me and made it impossible for me in the future. Our vows, our union, it was all thrown away so she could suck the schlong of some random guy who wasn't her husband. And then she lied. Oh, how she lied. And so for a long time I could not believe a single kind word of hers. She made me question my sanity, my parentage, my strength, and my worth. I don't want and won't go back to this. I have no one, but I still live. This proves that there is no woman in the world that I could not live without, because I already do. I don't hate women at all and wish them only the best. Because one day, Haley will become a woman too. But there is no woman in the world who could enrich my life, only complicate it. And in general, now I am not able to trust not only women, but basically any person around me. Many people asked how things were going with the search for Haley's biological father. I have researched many genealogy DNA testing sites. My main concern is that if there is a match, the company will notify the other party as well. If Haley takes a test that reveals a cousin, an uncle, or even a father, I, as her advocate, don't want anyone to come to us. She is a healthy child with no visible genetic defects, so I will wait to test. My current opinion is to wait until at least her teens or until she turns 18. I even considered the option of never telling her that I was not her father. If any of you have experience or advice on this, please share. It would be better not to tell her never or wait until adulthood. I don't think about myself. I already know the truth. I'm trying to prepare for any future scenarios, both good and bad. What is the likelihood that she will need to know her paternal inheritance for medical purposes? I understand that DNA testing will not take place in the next few years, given that her mother only recently passed away. I don't want to do anything that might make Haley feel less confident in herself or her identity. I rarely think about Amy because I'm too busy living my new life without her. I don't want to delve into the past for more than a couple of days. My children are my whole world, and I really love my work, which absorbs me completely. The salary is just a bonus for the opportunity to do what I like. Australians, if any of you are reading this, I hope I haven't offended anyone. I had no such intention. I'm sorry to be the one who brings bad news to your nation. You don't deserve this. Just like me. Just remember, if she gets drunk, wears a skirt with no underwear, and decides to do the splits at one of your bars, just rock her back and forth to break the vacuum and she'll rise up in no time. To everyone who took the time to write this story, thank you. And I wish you a good day or night. Today I went to a session with my psychotherapist. During lunch, I sent her this post to read, including the comments. She absolutely loved your advice and your hints about Lauren. She insisted that I move slowly, but be honest, with Lauren and with myself. So when I left the session, I called Lauren and asked if I could drop by for her expert opinion on some issues. After I dropped the kids off at their grandparents', I stopped by Lauren's office. I don't mess around with these pickups of yours because I've done without it in the past. I don't know how to flirt. I'm just who I am. All I have is kindness, humor, and sincerity. When Lauren realized that I had no legal issues, she smiled slyly. I said that I had been thinking and talking a lot with my friends since our conversation with her. I admitted that I was scared as hell to open up and give her a chance. But I was also 100% sure that it took courage, because she was brave enough to take the first step. I also said that I couldn't imagine how things would work out for us because of our differences. When she asked what the differences were, I mentioned children and the fact that she didn't have any. She said she enjoyed meeting my children and asked if it bothered me that she didn't have her own yet. I had no objections to this. I said I was a little worried because I was so tall and she was so petite, and I might accidentally hurt her if I was clumsy. She assured me that it was quite strong and said that big surprises come in small packages. I was nervous and said that I was not ready for sex yet, but I appreciated her offer. She blushed and laughed. At least she understands my weird humor. In general, we both have Friday and Monday off thanks to the holiday. So Thursday night we go out to a nice restaurant for dinner, and then head to a great martini bar I know. This is the first step. And although I am nervous, I really feel comfortable communicating with her and being around her. We'll move slowly, but I can't share this with you any further. So this will be my last post. If everything works out, great. If not, I'll deal with it. I just don't want anyone to feel disappointed if something goes wrong. I hope you all understand. Thank you all so much for your help in overcoming the hell that my life has become and for your support. May each of you know love, success, and most importantly, peace. God bless you. To be continued. Overall, thanks for watching. Write your thoughts in the comments, watch our previous video, it will appear here. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future stories like this. And good luck to you.